first saying the pledge. Chris, Sean, if you could put the flag up, that would be appreciated. And would everyone join with me in the pledging allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, folks, for joining us. Again, I apologize for my audio, no video, but hopefully I will join you shortly. I know we're kind of thin tonight. Let me do a roll call since I can't see who's here. Ryan, are you out there?
I am here. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Amanda, are you there?
Yes. Chuck.
And Gary Humes and Bob LaCourse were excused this evening. So we do have a quorum. We are also hopefully joined by John Robatella.
Yes, I'm here.
And he's our recording secretary. Also have Lance Brabant, who is a representative of our MRB, which is the town engineer. Are you there, Lance?
Yes, I am here. Thank you.
Thank you. And also Chris Nadler.
I'm here. Good evening.
Okay, Chris is our planning board attorney. And we have staff. We have Shauna Bontek.
Yes,
Our
I'm here.
Newtown. Thanks, Shauna. And is Chris helping you tonight?
He is running the show tonight.
The slideshow. Yep, here.
The slideshow.
As I said, he's in the mission control. All right. This is a Zoom meeting, and boy, I hope it's our last Zoom meeting after what I'm going through tonight. But our procedures for the Zoom meeting are such. We will go through the agenda item by item, application by application. On each item, the applicant will make a presentation to the board on his or her application, what they intend to do. That will then be followed by the board asking questions of the applicant. Once that has occurred, I will then open the discussion up to the general public for any questions that you may have. And then after that, I will go back to the board and we will deliberate and then take action on each application this evening, assuming that everything's in good order. If not, it would be continued at the next meeting. All that being said, if you do wish to address the board, please get our attention by using the raising the hand or waving in some manner so that we can recognize you. Once recognized, please give us your name and address, and you can then go about your question or concern. That being said, let's move on to the privilege of the floor. This is at the point in the meeting that if anyone has anything that's not on the agenda this evening, and they'd like to bring it to the board's attention, now's the time to do so. And Chris, Sean, are we seeing anybody?
I'm not seeing anyone, but everyone has the ability to unmute themselves tonight. We've unlocked that feature. So if we don't see you raising your hand or waving, just please unmute yourself and speak up. Okay, seeing none, I will then move on to attesting that we have 4 public hearings this evening. All 4 public hearings were published and legally noticed in the Daily Messenger on June 15th. And so that is on the record as being legally published. And if nobody has anything else, we'll move on with our agenda. And the first item on our agenda is a new public hearing being requested by West Corners LLC, owner of property at 2970 County Route 10, and they are seeking a single-stage subdivision approval to divide 13.432 parcel into two parcels. And with that, I will open the hearing. And I'll preface it by saying that the applicant went before the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Adjustment, last week, was successful in getting the variances that are pertain to the application. And being that the applicant was successful in getting those variances, we can now move to reviewing the subdivision. So with that, I will call on someone representing West Corners. And Greg, are you out there?
Yes, I am, Chuck. How are you?
Okay. Are you taking the lead on this?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, if you'd want to go through what
Sure.
you intend to do and how you intend to subdivide the property, we'd appreciate it.
Yep, sure. So first of all, thank you for the time. Greg Westbrook, 4096 Onalinda Drive, and driving this application for West Corners, which is one of the LLCs that I own. And it's the final subdivision for this parcel that is the joy of this planning board on numerous occasions, around the solar farm, around the mini storage. Now we have potential transactions on those two properties that you see as Lot 1 and Lot 2. We're going to subdivide that 13.432 into two parcels, one being 2.186 acres, the other one being 11.246 acres. The Zoning Board of Appeals actually not only granted a 5-0, they actually sent, the reason we were sent into a zoning hearing on the property back to the committee that has ordinance responsibilities for activities that sent us into this thing last week, that I would say the majority of that board felt were not necessary, but we're just going to let that sit there. The ordinance committee can step up and take care of this problem in the future, so nobody else needs to go through it. With that in mind, the primary purpose here is to subdivide the property. We are retaining frontage on County Road 10 for lot number 2, and also County Road 46 for lot number 2. That was the driver of the zoning issue. That's been resolved successfully. And there was a question asked at that hearing, why are you doing that? And I told them straight up that it's a requirement to get to access to utilities that run on County Road 10. As best I can see, County Road 46 will never be getting the utilities down that road, or at least for a long, long time. So we want to make sure we preserve that for the integrity of the future buyer. At the same time, we have a buyer for lot number 1, and that property is ready to go as soon as we get the subdivision approval, which we anticipate tonight. There was a question from one of the board members about the overall property showing lot number 2, and the engineers and I believe Lance okayed this. I don't want to say that, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but to show the detail of lot number 1 on County Road 10 and County Road 46 intersection, somebody decided, it was not me, but somebody decided to accept a lot number 2 is drawn in the upper left-hand corner of the drawing that you received that we're referencing here this evening. So I just wanted to address that one up front. There you go. Thank you, Chris, for circling it. Nothing else changes on that drawing. There is no change in the drawing. That's why I feel okay that we can do it this way. We also want to present the detail here so you can see what we have.
Okay, well, I guess the intent is to obviously subdivide off lot 1 from the larger lot. And with lot 2, I guess at some point you're going to have to give the meets and bounds description of that lot for the purposes of a deed.
Right.
And
they're prepared to do that. The engineer is prepared to do that. Parks Engineering.
Because the county will need that to formulate the deed.
Right.
All right, I guess. And as far as setbacks, again, you can't see the setbacks on lot 2 because of being cut off, but
there's
that
no
would
structure on lot 2. There's no structures.
no, not currently?
Nope. Nope.
Okay, I know, not currently, but potentially in the future. And it
We
would
did
just
show
have
the
to,
revised, we took what we got from Michelle this week and we responded to that.
okay,
Keith Burley from Marks Engineer has responded to that.
okay. But if and when anything happens with lot 2, certainly the setbacks that apply at the time would
Obviously.
be applicable. Okay, it's pretty cut and dry, folks. Ryan, Amanda, you have any questions related to this application?
Yeah, I guess, thank you, Mr. Westbrook, for the presentation. Lance, my question pertains to Mr. Westbrook's comment about lot 2 not being on the plan. Is there any reason that the town or the county would want to have those dimensions later on? And the reason I ask is
You have the dimensions, Ryan.
they do.
Yeah,
They
they're
do
on the drawing, upper left-hand corner. Can you go back there, Chris?
Yeah,
Just
can
take,
you scroll on that? So, okay, and Mr. Westbrook, give me just a sec, please. The reason I ask is I have no problem approving this right now. I'm ready to make a motion on it. I think that this is really cut and dry and very simple. Would it make sense? Because Mr. Westbrook is already, the engineer has all of the numbers. Is there any reason, Lance, that we should condition that we need more information as part of the approval tonight?
No, I believe your subdivision plat that's presented to you meets the criteria that's required for a subdivision plat. And therefore, I don't think there's anything additional above what we would typically do for a subdivision that would be, that we would have to condition this one on providing.
Okay, that's my question. I just want to make sure we go to the engineer, Mr. Westbrook, and just dot our i's, cross our t's. So I'm ready to move forward, Chuck.
Yeah, I think the new meets and bounds that are being created as part of the subdivision is what divides lot 1 from lot 2. The rest of it, it's not seen, even though it's part of the lot,
Right.
is something that's part of the current deed. And that's
Right.
that's a residual of the remainder. So what's being carved out is lot 1. And I think that's what Lance is conferring. And I think we're good to go in that respect. Lance, I didn't see a copy of your review. You had a review that was 6/11, June 11th.
Yes.
Anything of any substance the board should be aware of?
No, I basically had asked that they identify a potential driveway location for lot 2.
Right.
Whether it was off County Road 10 or County Road 41, it didn't really matter as long as we could just document that they had the ability to put a driveway if needed. They did that. Well, let me remind. I asked that question and then I asked for several notes to be added in, one being if the variances were approved, that's typically a requirement that they be noted on the plans. Fast forward as of today, I believe, it might have been yesterday. It was yesterday. As of yesterday, I received an email from Marks Engineering with a response letter. I believe, I'm not sure if Canandaigua at the time was copied in or not. But I received a response letter and a revised set of plans addressing the MRB comments. And I believe all my comments upon completing a more formal review have been addressed.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like MRB is comfortable.
I am.
We did not receive any comments from the town of Hopewell, which received a copy of the application. We did not, we got no comments from the county planning board. And I think Jim Fletcher did not comment. Let me go out to the group, everybody on the outside, anyone that is on this call that would like to speak regarding this application. Now's the time to do so. Otherwise, we will continue with our deliberations. Okay, it appears there are none. I think we've pretty well wrapped everything up. Let's move to our seeker review, which is an unlisted seeker review Could you put do you have a copy of the resolution in front of you, Chris, or can you put one up?
I don't have any resolutions or anything this evening. I didn't know, Lance, do you have any?
I sent to you and Shauna a PDF about 6 o'clock containing the resolutions that I forwarded to the town on Friday. If you can access that, then you might be able to show them that way. I'm not sure if you have that ability or not, Chris.
Give me a few minutes.
okay.
Otherwise, can you read them or something for Mr. Euler?
I think we're looking at a standard SOP seeker resolution regarding
Yeah.
unlisted, right? Okay,
Correct. So subdivision is an unlisted action under seeker. I apologize, Chuck, for interrupting
that's
you.
right.
Yes, it was an unlisted action. Therefore, the applicant provided us a short EAF and we're obligated to complete the EAF part 2 and part 3 for the short form.
And for the board's sake, we got copies of parts 2 and 3 in our mailing over the weekend. So if there's no questions there, I would entertain a motion for the seeker adjudication on this particular application. I'll make that motion. How about that? Since I was late for the meeting, I'll make a motion that the planning board consider this a unlisted action, subject to the conditions that are listed in the resolution that we are yet to put up, but it's pretty SOP, as I said. So all that being said, I make a motion that we consider that a resolution.
I'll second that. This is Amanda.
Thanks, Amanda.
Mhm.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Let's move on to the subdivision approval.
And I'll make that motion for the single stage subdivision approval for CPN 21-043, 2970 County Route 10, with the 4 conditions as written.
Second that.
Do we have any further conditions? Lance, not having it in front of me, does it include the requirement that the subdivision plan include the note that the ZBA had granted relief?
Yeah, it's our standard, within 180 days. The plans are to be revised and resubmitted for signature. Comments on the MRB letter dated June 16th to be addressed. We asked that a note be provided on lot 2 saying it's not buildable at this time without receiving an approval from the town of Canandaigua. And then number 4 is the payment and fee of lieu set aside of parkland prior to issuance of building permit for lot 2. I think you're correct, Chuck. I don't have the variance note. I know they added it, but it's standard that we ask that be a condition. So I most certainly can add that if that's what you like.
Okay, so we're looking at 5 conditions. Amanda, are you okay with that additional condition?
Yes.
Okay,
I
so I
do.
have a motion from Amanda. Ryan, did you second it?
I did, yep.
Okay, very good. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And as usual, John, I was silent, not closing the hearing, but the hearing was closed.
I did hear that. Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to our second hearing.
Chuck, before you go, just
Sure.
a question on timing. When would you expect to have your signature on the plat?
I could do it tomorrow
Okay.
if you have it in, assuming the conditions are met, or
Yep.
yeah, I'm pretty free.
You're pretty
to
much
get in.
around this rest of this week? Okay, great.
Yep.
That's all.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Greg. All righty, let's move on to hearing number 2. It's for CPN 21-045, Venezia Associates representing capital F, capital L, capital A, capital H properties, owners of property, yet to be determined address on Thomas Road. And they're seeking a single stage subdivision approval and then followed by a single stage site plan approval for a new family dwelling on one of the created lots. I will open the hearing and I will call on Rocco Venezia to make a presentation as to
what the application is all about.
Thank you, Chuck. Good evening, everybody. So this is Dr. Bruce Campbell. He owns this corner. It's about a 9 plus or minus acre parcel at the corner, northwest corner of Thomas and Summers. And what we'd like to do is create this parcel that's a building lot on the corner, the northeast or at the northwest corner of the subdivision. He also is going to create a parcel to the south on Summers Drive. And then a little bit of a piece of half an acre or more going to be annexed to Sherry Thompson's property, which is on the northwest side there. Yeah. There's a gas line easement that goes to the property. A big significant part of this property to the south of the pond is wetlands, and the pond would be considered wetlands also. The home is going to be built on the west side of the new lot we're creating. It's going to be set about the same elevation as Sherry Thompson's house to the west of it. Going to be serviced by a driveway coming off of Thomas Road that has adequate sight distance. Water is on our side of the road and it'll connect to water. Sewer is on the opposite side of the road, although there is a manhole on right there where that hand is there. And we're still in negotiations with the county sewer. The county sewer typically wants us to, if we're going to connect to something like this, they want us to extend the main across our property, except it doesn't really seem to fit in this scenario. That prompted the letter from the response from Jack that he wants a more detailed layout of the sewer. But in discussions with the sewer, it doesn't make sense to go to the west with an extension because Sherry is already connected, and then the properties to the west are all connected. There's nowhere to go to the west. So why would you extend the main? And to the south, it's wetlands. So it doesn't make sense to connect this. I don't know why we can't either bore underneath Thomas or connect directly to that manhole that's there. So we haven't designed a sewer main extension because it's very expensive and it doesn't make sense in this scenario. So we're trying to work with Jack Braun and Tim McElliott to work that out. They've hired Scott Hart, her professional engineering group, to kind of work on that. So we know we're going to be able to connect. It's just a matter of how.
Okay. All righty. So we have two applications in front of us, a subdivision of the lot and then a site plan. So which have their own seeker issues or seeker approvals that we have to grant. So, I mean, it'll be a gravity lateral. It's just a matter of whether you go into the manhole or across the street, right, Rocco?
That's right, Chuck. It's just, if we can bore underneath the road, we can do that. That's the simplest for us. You know, there's an issue because the sewer is deep on the north side of the road. So, but the simplest way is to go gravity right to that manhole that's on our side of the road. I mean, that's the simplest, but right now there seems to be a little bit of an obstruction at county sewer.
Let's handle both issues separately. Let's do subdivision first. So we have a 2-lot subdivision. Anybody in the board have any issues regarding what Mr. Campbell's trying to do? I think it's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, you know, I don't really. I think that this is pretty simple, but you know, the wetlands to the south, Rocco, do you think that those are going to impede any of the potential uses of those properties off of Summers?
So the potential wetlands that you're talking about, we still have to get a new delineation, but some's wetlands, some's not. But I'm actually under contract to buy that and add it to my property on the west. So it's going to eventually be a part of my Uptown Point project. So does that help? Does that help?
That does help, because I know that we were talking, this is part of a larger project that we've seen in the past.
Yep.
Part of that Uptown area development. Yep. And so I know that gas easement was also part of the concern that was there.
So one of the things that we were asked early on from you guys was another access out to Summers. So that'll definitely give us that additional access out to Summers.
And that's in my mind. That's in the back of my mind. So
Yeah.
that's, was with that gas easement.
Yep.
And then Summers, you got that other parcel right there, makes for egress and ingress a little bit easier for.
And Randy Farnsworth's on board. He owns a property just to the south of this, and he's gonna work with us, so. It's all good, I believe.
And all the, there's been no issues with any of the neighbors, right? They've been fairly supportive of this.
Yeah, I mean, the only neighbor is Sherry, and she's getting land from it, and the other neighbor is Randy, and then the other neighbor is myself, so.
And this falls within the Uptown area. It's a perfect location for
It does, yep.
a home to be built. It's a
Yep.
nice lot. It's close to Thomas. I'm ready to move forward on this, Chuck, unless Amanda has issues.
Nope, no issues for me. You touched on my question.
Okay, well, let's go to the audience. Anyone from the public that's on the call have any questions on either the subdivision or the site plan that's proposed by Mr. Venezia? If not, let me just do the perfunctory third party. The county planning board had no comments. The sewer district, as Rocco said, needs detailed plans, and I guess we have to make sure we feel comfortable that we're not creating a lot or approving a site plan that doesn't have sewer. But I guess, Chris Jensen, you would not issue a building permit unless there was a defined way to have sewer, right?
We'll wait until Mr. Benenzia gives us like an updated single lot plan showing that. And prior to signature, probably have that ironed out with you guys.
Okay, and related to water, this is part of the Connecticut Farmington Water Service area, and I see they had a note about showing the proper service detail for the water service. Okay, I guess the only other thing is it's one plan showing both subdivision and site plan. I know, looking ahead to the next application, we had a separate subdivision plan showing the two lots and the, how it's described in terms of its meets and bounds. And then we had a second plan that was the site plan for the development of that lot. Is that an issue here with staff or with Lance or with Chris Nadler, that we'd have this on one plan?
It's okay from a legal standpoint.
Yeah, I think as long as what is being filed with the county, the subdivision plat portion, contains all the required documentation, which this does, then I don't see any issue with it. But nonetheless, what would be required from us in terms of signatures might be a little bit different, which we're gonna have to talk about. Because, we typically can't sign a site plan prior to the subdivision plat being filed. That's typically how it works. The subdivision plat gets signed, that gets filed, that creates the lot. Then we sign the site plan for that lot.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the conditions that I was trying to figure out. And maybe I have that wrong. And if legal has a different opinion, please let me know. But I think, as I see it, that was the only issue with it being on one plan.
No, I agree.
Okay, so it may mean at some point he's got to give separate plans for each one. We sign both, but
So-
essentially the same plan.
So can I chime in?
Please.
In your code, you have an application for site plan and subdivision. It's a one-stage subdivision site plan. And then just recently up the road here, we did it that way, where we did the subdivision and site plan, and numerous other times I have. So if this is gonna be treated different, it's gonna be different than what we have just done recently. Do you remember that, or?
Yeah, I remember that. And at the very least, Rocco, we're gonna have two separate motions here.
No, I understand that, but we did that the last time, and then as far as signing a site plan before the subdivision, you would be signing them simultaneously, I think. right?
Well, yeah, I mean, if it stays as, yeah, Rocco, I understand what you're saying. You're not incorrect there. I was just trying to think. Most of the time I see it like on a large subdivision, right, where we have a preliminary and then I guess I'm not as familiar with this, but you're not incorrect. So we would be signing it simultaneously here. It still requires you to file the plat. So maybe the condition is just simply the subdivision plat is to be filed by X period of dates prior. Otherwise it would null and void the application, something to that effect.
I don't have a problem with that. No, I don't have a problem with that.
I just, my fear is not a fear. I just want to make sure that the filing of the subdivision plat occurs, which I know you got to do, but I just want to
Yeah.
make sure. that
I have
we
to
not-
do that because they're barking to close, you know?
Right.
Okay, well,
Excuse me.
And
That
I
being
can't
said-
issue a building permit till they have a tax ID number anyways.
yeah, so the lot is a lot of record. Ryan?
Yeah, so I mean, this is almost similar to a similar theme to the application just before us, right? So, so Lance, we can address this now and still approve these plans or disapprove, obviously, whatever the vote is, but, and then Rocco, are you okay? I just want to make sure that the applicant's okay with what I'm hearing from Lance and Chuck
I'm okay.
about the
I don't have a problem. It's however they want me to do it, I'm willing to do it, so.
I know you are. I just-
You know me, I'm the most agreeable guy in town.
Yeah, right. Of course you are.
Sean is.
Well,
I want to be consistent with what we've been doing and I'll be
Sean-
honest, I forgot that we previously did a subdivision site plan application very similar to the one that's before you tonight.
Just
and
up the
that's why
road, just
I
up the
referenced what
road,
we
yeah.
did. Yeah. So I guess from that standpoint, Ryan, I don't think we need to really alter what is before you. I just think we need to get creative with the condition, whatever the board sees fit in terms of the timing of the filing of the plat.
Okay, I think what threw me off is the next application has two separate plans, one for subdivision, one for site plan. So I was looking along that line, but if it can be done this way, fine. If nobody else from the board has any further questions on the application, let me close the hearing. Ryan, Amanda, anything else? All right, I declare the hearing closed. Let's move on to the subdivision. And this is the other issue. The subdivision seeker is an unlisted action, contrary to the site plan, but let's do the unlisted action related to the subdivision. I will allow the motion maker to bundle it with the single stage site subdivision approval resolution itself. So if someone wants to make those two resolutions. I'll
Mr.
set
Chair,
up.
before the motion, I just wanted to clarify why I did it this way. Typically, we like to see one seeker for the whole project, but in this case where we have two separate applications that could individually stand alone, he could get subdivision, could be denied site plan. Therefore, being that the seeker action doesn't change, unlisted being the worst case scenario, the impacts being the exact same, it didn't make sense to bundle them. So I thought keeping them separate as to two separate actions in case the board wasn't comfortable moving forward with site plan, that would allow the application to move forward. So that was my reasoning for separating the seekers.
And I certainly agree, and I certainly concur. I think the board does too. So that being said, we do have an unlisted action for seeker for the subdivision. And I also have a resolution for the approval of single stage subdivision. Again, I'm looking for a motion.
And I'll make that motion. This is Amanda for the seeker unlisted and the single stage subdivision 21045. As it's listed now in the subdivision, there are 4 conditions as they stand.
The question is do we need to add a 5th that says something along the lines, and Chris Nadler, I'm looking for you to assist on this. Do we want to put a time frame for the filing of the plat plan?
From a legal standpoint, I don't see a necessity for that.
Okay,
once it's signed, it has a 180 days to file it, I think.
60.
60 from the time it's signed,
60 from the time it's signed, so I think that should work, right?
right? And he won't be to get a building permit until a liable, a parcel has been formed, so that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm comfortable with the four condition. Maybe with the site plan, we talk about an additional condition, but let's wait for site plan. Okay, I have a motion and a second, motion from Amanda, second by me. And any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that takes care of subdivision. As far as the permission to build the house on that newly created lot, we are now looking at a seeker type 2, which is relatively benign, and then also a resolution for the single stage site plan itself. And I guess before we make the motion, is there something we want to add conditionally to this resolution that more or less states that the plan cannot be signed, or the plan cannot be signed until the subdivision is filed? Is that the line we were thinking? Lance, was that the concern?
I guess that would be the condition if we wanted him to separate the two, because right now they're one and the same. So once we sign it, he technically has signed subdivision, signed site plan, and can file it as is. I think the question is just making sure that it gets filed. And so that was where I was standing. But if the board wants him to separate the two, then what he would do is he would eliminate the building from the plat map, provide that plat map per signature. That would be required to be signed and filed prior to the signing of the site plan. That would come after that. But that's up to the board.
I think I don't want to speak for Amanda and Ryan, but I think we're okay with a single plan. So yeah, you're right. If we sign that plan, it includes both the subdivision site plan. Okay, understood. So we
And if we-
have, excuse me.
I'm sorry, Chuck. If we did that, then what we would do is we would eliminate condition number 7 as written on the site plan resolution, which suggests, just as we were talking earlier, separating the two and filing the subdivision.
Okay. So I will make a bundled motion to request approval of both a type 2 seeker resolution, which means no further action is required regarding seeker on this application from the board, as well as a single stage site plan approval, knowing that it's in combination with the subdivision, subject to the 6 remaining conditions listed in front of you. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Amanda.
Okay.
Chuck, I just have a question for Rocco about the sewer comment he made about 15 minutes ago. Rocco, you mentioned that to connect to the sewers on the other side, on the north side of Thomas Road, the sewer was too low into the ground. Is that correct?
Well, the sewer is really deep on the north side,
Deep, yeah.
so you have to dig a big receiving pit alongside the road. So I think that's the issue at letting us drill. But on the other hand, over to almost to the intersection on our side of the road where we wouldn't have to drill, there's a manhole. And we're saying to Jack Braun at the county, why can't we just tie into that? So we're gonna get this worked out. It's just a matter of what they make us do in the end.
Yeah.
Because they've got this policy that says if you're gonna tie in and there's a manhole on your property, which there is, you need to extend it across your property to the neighbors. But when it doesn't benefit the neighbors, or it's just extending it to no man's land, doesn't really make sense. That's what we're trying to say. It's a $25,000 item, you know.
Right. And so that's a policy that's set by who? Whose policy?
Ontario County Sewer.
And does that stand for all of Ontario County?
Yeah, we just did it. We're just doing it. The lots we created up north to the west of here, we ended up having to do it. But in that scenario, it made a little more sense because there was some land available that could tie into that manhole after we extended. So this one makes a lot less sense, but
And Mr. Nadler, are you familiar with that policy by the county? Mr. Nadler, Mr. Chris Nadler?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
What was the question?
There's a policy in Ontario County that if there's a manhole on your property, that you have to extend that manhole, that sewer across your property to the neighbors, to the neighboring parcels. Are you familiar with that policy in Ontario County?
I'm not familiar with that policy, no.
Yeah, I am not either, so.
Well, I mean, not to get hung up here, let's, it'll be up to Rocco to figure out a way to get sewer to that new house, so I think we can put it in his hands, and as long as the town's assured that it's got public sewer, that's all I think we're concerned about. All right, we have a motion and a second.
Call the question.
Okay, question's been called. Let's move on to the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
thank you very much. Have a great evening.
thanks, Rock. All right, folks, we're moving ahead to hearing number 3, which is CPN 21048, Grove Engineering representing Tyler and Melinda Brockenbank, owners of property at 2504 Cooley Road. And they're seeking a subdivision and single state site plan approval to build a house. Should sound familiar. And I will open the hearing. And I will call on Bill Grove.
Hi, everybody.
Someone, there he is.
Can you hear me? Good.
Yep, we can hear you.
So yes, this is a subdivision. Rocco Banks want to split off a small building lot on the off the part of the property that they own there. So we're looking to split off a little more than 2 acres so that they can build a new house for Melinda's mom to live in. We don't have sewer on this property, so we would be doing a shallow trench septic system. There is town water. There's an existing farm lane driveway that they're going to reuse for access into the property. And it's fairly benign. It's agricultural land, but we got the report from you guys from the, I can't remember the name of the group, but they said that it wasn't very important agricultural land.
The
So
Agriculture Advisory Board.
Advisory Board, that's correct. So they are, I think it's a pretty simple project, but I can't speak a lot to the actual subdivision portion of that. Mott Land Surveyors did that portion. I don't know if they're on the Zoom with us or not.
I think the only question I had in the subdivision was the easement that's being proposed, the 10-foot easement. Is that for access to the farmland?
It is, and it's my understanding that as long as they own both of the properties, that they don't actually need an easement, but it would be there shown on the map for any future access to the farm, because that kind of east-west line, just as part of this property and mostly on the parent parcel, is an old railroad bed, and my understanding is they can't cross that with the farm equipment. They come in this existing gravel lane, so they want to keep access to that so they can continue to farm the rear of the property.
Okay. Chris, if you could put the site plan up, we'll take a look at that.
Chuck, if I may, I think if we're doing the subdivision now, well, this is a site plan or a subdivision?
It's both.
Okay, so we'd want the easements, even if it's the same owner. For right now, we would want the easements in place in advance.
And I think the applicant's proposing that.
Oh, I thought Bill said something different.
Yeah, that was the question. What's it for? And I think Bill has answered that. It's for access to the farmland. Should parcel A at some time in the future change hands, so the farmer can still get back to the back 40.
Sounds good.
Okay, site plan, if you have it there, Chris. Okay, looks pretty simple. Get septic system in the front yard. It'll be on public water, right, Bill?
Correct.
Okay, and so you have that access to the road. You have it paved from the right of way to the edge of the road. Very well done. It'll be a gravel driveway up to the house itself once you clear the right of way line. I don't think there's any stormwater issues. Did you propose any type of stormwater mitigation at all? Rain gardens, anything? Or
I did not. No, not on this one.
Roof drains are on splash box?
Splash blocks or connected to the, to where the footer drain goes out south of the septic system. Of daylight over on the, the east side of the property. There's a light blue line.
Oh,
follows
yeah.
along there.
Okay. All right. Board members, any questions on either the subdivision or the site plan?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Sure.
Bill Grove, again, love these plans. I really do.
Thank you.
Easy to look at. I like the detail, especially the concrete washout detail that you provided, the photo. That's kind of a new thing. I guess maybe I haven't seen that. It looks kind of nice. My question is about the temporary check dams being removed on the west side of the house. Can you just explain that?
Well, I didn't have them proposed, but that was something that Lance had in his review letter that we should add them. So I add them. I don't think that they're necessarily warranted. I think it's just a shallow swale. We're, proposing to divert water around the backside of the house. I don't know. I could take them or leave them. The idea, I guess, is that during construction, they would be there to kind of catch any sediment that may accumulate in that shallow swale. And then once turf is established, I guess they could be removed. But I guess I'm not a fan of them in this case.
Lance, maybe you could speak up. I was looking at the plan. I said, why is there check dams back there? And I understand now during construction, but I can't imagine removing check dams. Like, that sounds like a nightmare for somebody. Like, I don't know how you would do that. So Lance, can you chime in? Like, can you speak to that requirement that you've asked?
Yeah, so yeah, we were concerned with the construction aspect. I realize it's a single family home, but likewise with the drainage field where we're conveying channelized water, we wanted to slow it down and prevent the runoff. I understand what Bill and you were suggesting. I guess if the board feels that it's not necessarily needed, there's other ways that we can stabilize that swale. Maybe we can change it during the sequence and have it just stabilized prior to, full disturbance of the site. But that's just one way in which we can prevent some of the runoff that we've seen on some of these projects.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a riprap, if it's typical check dam is large riprap, limestone, and is there some relief we can provide to the engineer and contractor that would maybe be more another natural fiber? I'm thinking like straw bales.
Yeah, so I can speak to that a little bit. In
Please.
the research for it, I tried to find a detail of a temporary check dam, and I couldn't find one in the design manual, although the language about check dams does speak to straw bales or rolled like erosion control logs placed across there. So I would see something more along those lines. I'd be more comfortable with that because it'd be a lot easier to remove than piles of stone. But they didn't have the only detail I found was just that detail you see on there for, what appears to be stone as a check dam.
Hey, Ryan, this is Chris Jensen. For all other projects, as far as check dams, they're always removed after the project, like the Morel subdivision and stuff. They're a temporary measure during construction to catch the silt and stuff. They're always removed after the project's stabilized.
Yeah.
What's the material, Chris? Is it stone or is it something vegetative?
It's usually riprap, like the larger jagged stone.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess
I guess for this location, I'm sorry, Ryan, to interrupt you. I guess I don't have a problem with them using, the other, I'm sorry, bear with me, the straw bale, thank you, geez. For this location due to its proximity and where it's located, I think that could work, as long as it was staked in properly. I think that could work out here in this location.
And it is a very small drainage area. You can see the contours. It's almost a small pie-shaped piece that would drain towards the house on the upper side. So you're not talking a large area of
I
influence
agree.
on that.
I'm good with that too. And a good catch, Ryan. I think you.
Just makes
it's good
sense
bringing
for,
that up.
a single family residential home is a heck of a lot different than a large subdivision where significant amounts of erosion and, it's just, I think it's fair for the scope of the project. So
Okay.
can you write that into the
Condition.
conditions, please, Lance?
Okay, Amanda, you have anything else related to either the subdivision or site plan?
Nothing additional from me.
Okay. Let me go to the folks out in TV land. Anyone want to speak or ask questions regarding this application on Cooley Road? Okay, if not, let me just look to make sure all our referrals were taken care of. The county planning board had no comment. Jim Fletcher had no comment. Lance, MRB did submit a letter dated the 16th. That was posted on the FTP site today. If there's any issues, Lance, you want to go over, fine. If not, just it's referenced in the conditions. As mentioned, the Ag Advisory Board felt there was no loss of farmland due to this this application. And I think that pretty well covers boring the water surface was something else that Jim Fletcher had mentioned. So all that behind us, I will close the public hearing. We'll move on to deliberations. Again, we have a subdivision plan and a site plan. The subdivision plan includes a seeker unlisted action, which I will make a motion that we consider this to be an unlisted action, given that the part 1 was submitted by the applicant, parts 2 and 3 are being submitted by are being prepared and included in the action as a result of the town's action. And also I will include the single stage subdivision resolution as part of that package. And so we have 2 resolutions for the subdivision. Any further discussion? Do I have a second, first of all?
Second. Amanda.
Further discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let's move on to site plan.
I'll make a motion here, Chuck.
Okay,
I make a motion to approve single stage site plan approval with 6 conditions for 2504 Cooley Road in the AR2 zoning district, CPN 21-048 for Tyler and Melinda Brocklebank.
and we want to either add a condition regarding the vegetative,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
I added a number 6 to, wait, are you guys looking at, am I looking at the wrong one here?
Would that make it 7?
Oh, I know what it is. Okay, so I already removed one. So see on yours, number 5,
5,
I removed 5 based on the previous application that we had. And so
Yep.
then I added a new 6 that suggested that in lieu of stone check dams, staked straw bales are permitted to be provided within the rear yard swale. If to provide staked straw bales, a detail is to be added to the plans. Is the board comfortable with that?
Fair enough, Bill?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fine. That's still 6 conditions with a
So
motion.
total of 6, as referenced by Ryan. Thank you, Ryan.
okay, I have a motion by Ryan. Amanda, did you second that?
I will right now.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion, a second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, everyone. Bill, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, our last public hearing is CPN 21-052, Marathon Engineering representing S&J Morel, owners of property at State Route 21 and Perry Street Extension. They're seeking a subdivision approval of the Pierce Brook subdivision to subdivide 95 acres to create 92 lots, 92 parcels for 92 single-family dwellings. And I will open the hearing, and I guess I will preface by saying tonight's action will basically be by the planning board to designate ourselves as the lead agency in the seeker review.
Intent,
And-
just
Oh.
clarify, intent to be.
Intent to be the lead agency, hoping everybody agrees, right? So Lance, if you would one more time go through what that means for the benefit of the folks who are sitting in on the meeting that are here to listen about this application. If you could go what that means, I'd
Sure.
appreciate it.
Sure. So the application is before the planning board. Due to the size and magnitude, there is a type 1 list that we're governed to adhere to. And based on that, this application is considered to be a type 1 action. And therefore, being a type 1 action, it requires this board to coordinate with other involved and interested agencies. The involved agencies are those agencies or departments that have standing on this application or otherwise issue a permit or approval of the application. The interested agencies are those agencies that are exactly that, interested or should be contacted or notified that there's an application going on, and maybe there's some comments or feedback that they would like to provide to the board. In either case, this begins a 30-day review on which we're obligated to provide up to that time frame for those agencies to respond back to us on whether or not they have any objection to this board being the lead agency for completing the seeker or the environmental review of this application, or 2, to provide any feedback or comments that they have on this application. If for whatever reason that 30-day period ends and the board feels that there's still some question and comments remaining that they need to seek or receive, they may be able to continue the seeker review in order to provide that documentation to allow them to complete a part 2 and part 3 of the application, which is the next step once we get through this coordinated period. With that being said, I did provide a draft intent to be lead agency resolution for your consideration. And that basically summarizes what I just referenced to the board, that this is a type 1 action under seeker, that the planning board determines the application is subject to a coordinated review, and that this application will be coordinated out with written notifications to both the involved and interested agencies for the purpose of conducting and coordinated review and making a determination significance thereon, and that this planning board has allowed, based on this resolution, if it passed, MRB Group to provide that documentation to those agencies.
Okay, thank you. Before we declare that intent, being that there are so many folks on the call this evening, and we also have Mr. Morel and representatives of Marathon Engineering here, I would entertain any update from Jeff regarding this application since we last convened on this, which I guess was back in the sketch plan stage. No, I guess it was back when we were considering the density increase. So anything you can update us on and anything that's changed since that time. And I will also listen to any questions, concerns from residents who would like to comment since they were so good enough to sit in with us this evening. So Jeff, why don't you start it off?
Sure. Can everyone hear me okay, Chuck?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Just for the record, it's Jeff Morel with Morel Builders. And, just giving an update to the board. It's been an incredibly, healthy process so far. And I've made commitments to the public to notify them if there have been any changes or additions that would have any type of adverse impact. I just wanted to let the public know that that is not the case. The project has incorporated all of your feedback up till now, and that is what has been submitted to the town. We have completed our process now presenting before the Ontario County Board, as well as the Planning Board workshop in our PRC reviews. And just recapping where that feedback is been received, we were able to alter the walking trails and move those walking trails away from where the bed and breakfast was. At their request, we were able to subordinate both the entry and exit positions of the community as far as where the homes began on the road network to maximize the entry buffering along Bristol Road as well as Parish Street extension. As you know from prior presentations, the project is not disturbing any of the critical environmental areas. We protected all of the woodlands, the steep slopes. We have full 64% reduction of the impervious surface area on the site. And we have preservation of the wetlands, stream corridor, and the original farm pond. I also want to add that we had an action item to work with Kevin Olvani of Pure Waters. Kevin and I were finally able to connect as recently as actually this morning. And we're now working through the grant application that they have in place. And our site engineer, Rich Teedy, and myself and Kevin will be walking the site. And we're beginning to circulate and incorporate Kevin's comments into the project. And they namely pertain to the stream corridor that they've got, which ultimately was originally was a straight line farm created ditch, really from that point to that point, exactly right where the cursor is showing. What the recommendation is to return that into a more natural state by creating some curves in that linear formation, as well as making some plantings of a riparian nature for water quality treatment. And that is going to go into like a 50-50 matching program. They've got about $15,000 that they can contribute. We'll contribute a matching $15,000 to that, and we'll take on that work of doing some water quality treatment areas along that stream corridor. And we'll be able to confirm that upon site walks, as well as incorporate those into our prelim design. So we're moving forward with that concept, and we'll be submitting our full conservation easement and maintenance plan as well with our prelim when we complete that process. And we're working on those conservation easements now with regards to long-term management and maintenance because of the significant amount of open space that will be HOA maintained, but it will be open up to the general public as part of the overall process. And that's what we have as far as an overall update, Chuck. And we've completed our traffic studies at this point and submitted them. Our sewer study is also completed and into Ontario County. We've got the capacity to work that issue. We've also obviously been able to alleviate concerns by ensuring that that sewer cannot be extended on a gravity capacity beyond Parish Street extension where we are in section 3. And we're very anxious to kind of complete the process and continue to work with the adjacent neighbors to make sure that we field all the appropriate comments.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. There have been some other third-party reviews that have occurred over the recent weeks. One was the Ag Advisory Committee did
issued their recommendations. And if you, I'm not going to sit here and read them and go through them, but that's now into the mix. And also the ECB, our Environmental Conservation Board, has also spent a lot of time looking at the plans and making comments. And I assume, Jeff, you have seen both those reports.
I have, and actually, I apologize. I attended the ECB meeting as well, just to make sure that we were addressing any of their comments specifically. So yeah, I've been able to see those, and we'll have responses to all their comments as part of our overall review and submissions.
Okay. I'll open it up to the public. You've been very patiently waiting, and if anyone has any questions of the board, or in turn, we could then ask Mr. Morel. If we can't answer the question, now's the time to get our attention and bring them up.
Again, you can unmute yourself if you want to speak.
Well, maybe they were just here to listen to the deliberations, which that's fine that they're.
That could
active.
also be my fault, Chuck, because I've given everybody my direct phone number.
You're getting the calls.
I'm making sure, yeah, I want to make sure that people reach out to me directly, and I'll continue to work with the general public just to make sure that I'm dialoguing with everybody directly.
If you want to give that phone number one more time, somebody
Yes.
might be on the call.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Again, so if there are new people in the public this evening, my direct cell number is area code 585-755-4606. And I'll also give you my email, which is Jeff.Morell, and it's spelled MORRELL at morellbuilders, all one word.com. And happy to address any comments offline as well.
And if someone has any questions regarding the town's deliberations on this, I think you can certainly contact Shauna at Town Hall, and she can give you an update as to the scheduling and where we stand in terms of future meetings and reviews. And this will be over the next 2 months, probably at least, of reviews. It's some back and forth in terms of getting plans to the point that it's certainly a project that we can all be proud of. So let's all work in that direction. Okay, I guess we're to a point that we can put that resolution up that Lance had mentioned earlier regarding our intent to take the lead on this as far as seeker.
Chuck, I have some conversation I'd like to have about this, please.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't open it up to the board. I opened up to the public, but not to the board. Go ahead, Ryan.
I'd like to discuss not being the lead agency for seeker for this project.
Okay, who would be the alternative?
I don't know. I think that would be up to my best judgment would be the town board.
Okay. I'll need some help from staff and our consultant in terms of is that something that could typically occur? Or not typically occur, but untypically occur and still be a possibility?
Yeah, so and I'm gonna try to get through this as best as I can. Typically, it would be a board or an agency that has standing or issues an approval at some point in time in the project that might be considered for being the lead agency on an action, or the more appropriate board to review said action. Typically, in a situation like this would most certainly be the planning board. to follow what Ryan's saying, I think the course of action, if that was the case, I guess I would have to do some research to see if there's anything that would prevent you guys seeking out the town board's input and asking them to be lead. I think the way that I've seen it done before is that you would do a request to the town board, and the town board would either object to it or agree to it. But that would take at least another town board meeting for this to get on, so it potentially delays ultimately seeking the lead agency request. Maybe there's a way that we can do it as part of that seeking lead agency request and send a request referral to the town board during that 30-day review to see if that's something that they want to take over as lead agency for. But that would be something that I haven't seen done before on a project like this.
Nor have I, and if the town board doesn't jump at the chance, there's a mechanism by which the involved agencies, which would include us and which would include the town board, can ask for a determination who is the lead agency from the commissioner of the Department of Environmental Conservation. My understanding is that's generally a mechanism when two agencies both want to be the lead agency.
That's where I've seen it done, Chris.
At this point, somebody, there isn't much of an option. If the town board wishes to take it over, then we can discuss that. But the agency initially receiving the application has to circulate materials and coordinate review. If you really don't want to declare intent to be lead agency, just like Lance said, we can talk to the town board about it and see if they'd be interested in it. If they aren't interested in it, the planning board will essentially be stuck with it because we can't take any actions without a lead agency.
Brian, I guess I'd have to ask you, why do you think the town board should be the lead agency?
Yeah, sure, thanks. All due respect, there have been several projects over the past couple of years that the town board has declared themselves lead agency, and I'm not 100% sure, but I think the town pole barn was one of them that the town board accepted responsibility to be the lead agency for seeker. And I just want to, I think it's the most fair avenue for the applicant, given the history of this project. And specifically the last time we saw this project, I think it's the most respectful avenue to offer the applicant. And it would be the most fair because we voted 4-1 to not support the increase in density that went to the town board. And the town board voted 5-0 to support that. And so I'm just trying to be as objective and fair as possible for the applicant. And I think the town board deserves the opportunity to explore the State Environmental Quality Review Act for all the reasons that they supported the increase in density.
Right,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Lance.
just to comment a little bit on that. Ryan is correct. The town board did take lead agency on several projects, specifically the pole barn. But just to be clear, the pole barn uses town funds, and when it's a town action like that, or like a water main project or a sewer project, that ultimately has an approval process that runs through the town board. So therefore, whenever a town project is occurring, it does not require local review from the planning board. Typically, in those scenarios, the planning board would be identified, if wanted, an interested agency to which point we would be reviewing an application that the town board's looking to approve. But ultimately, the town board would in fact on those be the lead agency due to the fact that it's town funds. I think as it relates to what Ryan's request is, I think maybe we have two courses of action. I think one would be continuing as directed tonight with the intent to be the agency resolution, seeking input and objections from other involved and interested agencies. I think we can identify the town board as an agency to be referred to. And then maybe the town planning board, if this is their desire, could issue a letter to the town board that would follow this package to them, kind of clarifying what the board is asking them to do, if that's the direction. They'll provide some feedback to the town board. And then within the 30-day review period that we're coordinating under, the town board who would be receiving this application and the letter would have an opportunity to respond back to the planning board. Just my thoughts.
Well, I feel we should not abdicate our responsibility in terms of not only taking action on the subdivision itself, but it sort of goes hand in glove with the seeker, and they are sort of tied to the hip because of the environmental aspects related to the subdivision, and to have two different agencies involved in those reviews, I think it would make it kind of cumbersome. So I would certainly recommend that the planning board be the intended lead agency, and I would, that's the way I feel. And I think, Lance, you sort of explained the issue, the occurrences where the town board was the lead agency was because of projects that they had funded and they had approved. And in this case, it'll be a project that we will be involved in the decision. And ultimately, I think it again goes compatible with the seeker.
And all due respect to everybody's, I think for the exact reasons you just mentioned, and for the reasons that Lance mentioned, this project has already gone through the town board. They already assumed that responsibility. And so that's where I think the natural tie is I don't want to abdicate our authority. I want the town board obviously has they've already voted on this project, and so the project has gone through that process through the town board. Therefore, it seems like the most natural, the obvious choice is that they should be the lead agency to perform the State Environmental Quality Review Act on this large project that they obviously have reviewed and came to a different determination than this board did. And that's why I feel it warrants at least a conversation with the town board. And it just seems to be the right thing to do because of the last action we took on this project pertaining to really many environmental issues. So that's.
Well, let me stop you there, because the State Environmental Quality Review Act dictates a procedure. This board, the planning board, has conducted the state environmental quality review that's required by the state on hundreds of occasions, thousands of occasions, by following the process and making determinations on specific environmental issues in each and every case. I would caution that we not question the ability of this board, because I'm confident that this board can conduct an objective, competent, and in accordance with the environmental regulations of this state review on this and any project. This board is the most qualified to conduct an environmental review on a subdivision application of this size and scale. And the issue of increased density that the town board passed was one that is not comparable to the environmental quality review regulations. The determination that this board made was a recommendation determination. You're correct that this board recommended against increasing density, but that does not have any bearing on this board's ability to conduct a high-level seeker review. And I would caution that we not question that ability.
And I certainly agree with Lance. We could make the town board a subordinate review as part of this and provide input to us in terms of our deliberations on the seeker package. Which, if you're looking for input from the board, Ryan, that would be the way to do it rather than designating them as their intent to be the lead agency.
Yeah, I guess I'm not swayed. I just am trying to keep this process moving forward in light of the recent conversations on record, and trying to be as fair to the applicant as I possibly can be. And I appreciate Mr. Nadler and Mr. Brabant's comments. But again, I think I strongly feel that this board should not be serving as the lead agency for this particular project.
Well, okay, let's put the resolution up and take a look at it anyway. Do you have it, Chris? So we're clear as to what's actually occurring. And rather than sitting here marking time, Lance, you've prepared the resolution. Anything unique that you can point out in the language that is pertinent to what we've been discussing for?
So, I was trying to look up additional information if there was anything that I might be to offer, but my clearest understanding of the process is right now, the planning board has an application that's before you. And the only person and agency that's capable of reviewing said application is this board. That's a subdivision, phased subdivision application, which per your code requires it to come before you for review and approval. That then triggers us to do what is called the a seeker determination and review. And at this point, the first step in that process is to declare our intent or an intent to be lead agency or seeking objection to this board being lead agency, being that you guys received the application, it's your due diligence to process that application in that accordance with the state law. In doing so, if any other involved agency objects to that process, they would do so within that 30-day period. In this case, that agency does not necessarily involve the town board, being that they're not an involved agency based on the fact there's no approvals that they have to provide as part of this review right now. Yes, there was a review that they provided, which was a separate review based on what was permitted in the code, and they received that approval. Therefore, there's no other approvals that requires this application to go to the town board at any point in time during this process. If this was a rezoning application, yes, the town board would have some standing and therefore would be an involved agency that could object to this board being lead. But being that there is no application before them or any time would they receive this application, I don't see as if how they can be identified as an agency, an involved agency who would object to this. What I'm considering is we can identify them as an interested agency, and Ryan and the board, if they foresee the need to, most certainly can provide their concerns as to why they feel maybe the town board would be the most appropriate board. But I think we have to provide and do our due diligence as the planning board for this application, which is before you and only you, to move this along and begin the seeker process. So as long as the board feels that we have a completed application.
So Lance, you just brought a perspective, made me realize I don't think the town board is eligible to be the lead agency. Is that accurate?
I would have to look that up more thoroughly, Chris, but yes, I don't.
If they don't have an action pending before them, they're not eligible to be lead agency.
There's no action that I'm aware of that that board would take on this project. Going forward from this point on.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct.
But they did do it. But they already made the action.
Yeah, so they're not eligible to be lead agency in the.
I mean,
Ryan, you're right. They had an action that was before them per the code. There was the density criteria that triggered them to do a review, which they did.
Right, and the town board's action changed all of the underlying zoning, which this board voted 4-1 to not support. So I'm just trying to put this process in the best hands for really the town board, because the town board is who grants the planning board the responsibility to be seeker lead agency for all actions. So that I'm just trying to make sure that that process is object. I mean, it just seems natural and most fair and appropriate to the applicant to do that. So I don't understand how they could not. I mean, it seems like maybe the zoning board or maybe the environmental conservation board could be enough. I just feel like this.
Neither of those agencies are eligible to be the lead agency on this project.
So I guess what if the town board, I mean, I'm just trying to be as polite as possible and try to call that the last time we saw this project that we voted against it 4-1.
We didn't vote against the project, Ryan. No.
Against the increase in density.
You're making it kind of overly dramatic. It was not a vote against the project. We had some concerns regard of increasing the density, given the parameters that justified the increase in density, and it primarily had to do with the open space as to who would maintain it. So it wasn't like we turned the project down. It was just a matter of wanting more details as to how that open space would be maintained in the future, because that was our concern, which was the premise for increasing the density.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean to make it over dramatic. I don't feel like I'm making this over dramatic.
Yeah.
Just
May
trying
I,
position
mind
to
if I comment at all?
stating my opposition to us being, I object to the planning board being the lead agency for seeker on this project.
Certainly understood.
Okay, Chuck, did you want to make a motion to declare the intent to be lead agency?
Well, I was hoping we could put the motion up since this is an important action being taken by the board. Chris, apparently things have locked up on him. And Chris Jensen? Boy, is he off the call? Ah.
Doug, do you want me to
There it
read
is.
the
We got
resolution? Or you got it?
He's
Okay.
got it. He's on.
He got it. He's on it. All right. Before us is a resolution declaring our intent to be the lead agency regarding this matter. If you want to spend a minute and read it, I will take the time to do so. While you're doing that, I will call on Jeff Morrell. Jeff, you had a comment, question?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. With respect to the density and density increase, there was actually no vote held by the planning board, no resolution done by the planning board. on this. So I just want to set the record straight that there was no 4-1 vote on this project. with
Oh,
regards to
Jeff, I
density.
gotta differ with you. We did
Yeah.
take a vote. It was a request from the town board as to our recommendation. And we did take a vote as to how our recommendation would read and to be transferred to the town board. So there was an action taken.
Okay. Second, and sorry for that, but second is Ryan, with respect to your input as far as fairness, I don't think there's a question of fairness or where the project is best served from a applicant perspective. I've been doing this a very long time. It would be really unprecedented for us to see a subdivision application before the planning board be moved to the town board in a seeker process that is not in a rezoning state. This is a straightforward application that we're making with regards to subdivision and subdivision approval in a prelim and then final section 1 process. So moving that entire process over to the town board when the town board isn't ultimately making any decisions with regards to prelim and final approval would really be an odd thing to do with regards to its overall review. It's just something I've never seen when we're going before a board with regards to our overall subdivision approval process. And then without preempting seeker, the environmental characteristics of this process as we outline those in seeker are all going to be extremely well mitigated given the amount of open space and environmental protections that are in place on this project in every one of those categories. So although it's a type 1, we'll be extremely below the threshold of environmental disturbance on this project as we move through this seeker, and I think that'll be come quite evident. So I guess you're welcome to vote how you'd like. I would just I've never seen a subdivision approval process be bounced to the town board in a seeker review and our application process.
Jeff, let me cut you off there because I want to make it very clear that there is no ability of the town board to become the lead agency on this project. I want to make that very clear. I didn't make that very clear at the beginning until Lance pointed out that this isn't a rezoning process. The only thing that the town board had to do with this was under our subdivision code to increase the density by 15%, which it was allowed to do. They are no longer involved in this action. Lance, are they listed as an involved or interested agency?
We have them currently listed as an interested agency based on tonight's discussion, but at this point, we typically would have them listed as an interested agency on any application that goes before the planning board, in case there's something that maybe we are not adhered to or haven't been a part of. That way they have an opportunity to provide feedback to the board. But the only time they're identified as an involved agency that I can remember as part of the process that we have done and seen is when they have an actual approval of the application, i.e. rezoning application, MUO applications, those type of things.
I apologize to the board and I apologize to the applicant. I did not realize that this wasn't a rezoning application until Lance specifically pointed out midway through this discussion. That's a mistake on my part. Because it did have town board involvement at the beginning, I just didn't think it through, and I gave you advice that the town board shouldn't be lead agency. I now clarify that advice to the board that the town board cannot be the lead agency. It is not involved. It's questionable whether it's interested. It can't be the lead agency.
Okay. And this application has some uniqueness in terms of it being a conservation subdivision, which, puts a little bit of a wrinkle in it. But I think it all being said and done, it is the planning board's responsibility to adjudicate and rule on this thing, which also includes the seeker considerations ultimately at some point. So that being said, the resolution has been in front of you for the last couple of minutes. Hopefully, if you wanted to read it, you did. With it being posted, I will make a motion that the planning board pass this resolution with the intent of being the lead agency regarding this particular application. And do we have a date? I'm looking down here, Lance, is there a date in there as to when the 30 days expire? Don't we usually put that in there?
We have, and I have since removed it, and I can most certainly add it back, but I'll clarify. The reason why we took it out is that the procedure for us to get it out the door requires some effort on our end to get the letters, to get everything dated, to get everything stamped certified, and then to send it out electronically. My fear is that sometimes when that date is identified, if for whatever reason it doesn't get out in the time frame, then we may have to amend the resolutions. So what I've done is I removed the date from the resolution with the understanding that the 30-day time clock starts by law from the first day that the involved agencies receive the packages. So my goal is to get it out this week, bearing no setbacks and allowing the application to move forward with the 30 days ending, I believe, July 26th. But that would be further reflected both in our cover letter to the involved agencies and the response form. But just in case it didn't happen, I didn't want to put a date on the letter that might ultimately require us to come back and amend it.
Okay, July 26th being the 30-day clock date. Our next meeting, that meeting is the 27th. That's kind of a short fuse. So I think for the purpose of folks that are listening on this call, the next time this board would be taking any action or reviewing this application would be at our August meeting, which would be the second Tuesday in August. I don't have the calendar in front of me.
August 10th.
August 10th. Thank you, Lance. So, a motion being made. Do I have a second?
This is Amanda. Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Further discussion.
I have further discussion. Mr. Brabant, how do we add more? When is it appropriate to add other interested parties?
You can, by all means, do that now. And if there's specific agencies that you want to be considered as interested agencies, you can do that now.
So, excuse me, Lance, I have to correct you.
Yes.
Involved agencies and interested agencies are defined in the New York State seeker regulations. It's not just who we want to add, it's who's defined in the guidance and the regulations. It's not just who the board wants to add, it's who's defined in State Environmental Quality Review Act.
Did I hear it stated that the town board is an interested agency?
Yes, the
Okay.
town board is identified as an interested agency.
Does that make you okay, Ryan?
Well, I guess it opens up other questions. I mean, I guess I wonder who else can be in all these. If the town board can't be the lead agency, and maybe we need to do our due diligence on who are the legally defined interested and involved parties that are spelled out through the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Unless Mr. Nadler knows those.
Looking right now, if you want to continue this discussion, I'll have an answer for you in a few minutes.
And again, I'm trying to be polite and objective, recognizing the impact of this project in our town, and I'm trying to be respectful to the Morels. And So I appreciate the conversation. I think this project is worthy of important conversation. And so I do appreciate, Mr. Chairperson, your patience, and certainly Amanda, I appreciate your conversation, and Mr. Morel, and Mr. Brabant, and also Mr. Nadler. I just want to make sure this is done the right way, and I'm sure everybody wants that.
Okay, well,
So
as the
do you
maker
have
of the
an answer? If
motion,
no- if
I'm willing
no-
to, go ahead, Chris.
If no involved agency expresses a desire to take the lead agency role, it will be within a 30-day period. The matter should be treated as a lead agency dispute in the same manner as the situation where two or more involved agencies desire, and the commissioner will resolve the dispute. That's item 1. And I'll get you more information on interested agencies, designating interested agencies. There we go.
Okay, it's okay with me, and if it's okay with the seconder of the motion, we can defer action on this until Mr. Nadler gets back to us, and we can move ahead to the next item on the agenda, which is Design Works. It's CPN 21042, representing Paul and Lisa Campbell, owners of property at 4681 North Menteith Drive, and they're seeking a single stage site plan approval for the demolition of an existing home and the construction of a new single family dwelling. This is a site plan, does not require opening a public hearing, so we can go right to the applicant. Is there someone from Design Works that wants to tell us what your intent is out there?
Actually, Mr. Chairperson, I'm Paul Campbell. I'll be speaking tonight. Chuck Smith from Design Works will be on the line, as will my wife, Lisa. My wife, Lisa, and her brother, Greg Gifford, own this property, 4681 North Menteith Drive, as well as the property next door, 4685. This property, 4681, has been in my wife's family since the early 1940s. Her father has been there his entire life, and my wife has owned the property for approximately 35 years. We have explored, our goal was to remodel the existing house and to add an addition on this property. And in talking to builders, we've discovered that the floor joists in the house are completely rotten, and the foundation needs to be replaced. And so it's been told to us by developers or by builders that it's best to tear down the existing house and build back along with this addition. So that's what we're now presenting. We've kind of changed in stream, but this application is to tear down the existing house and to rebuild it in the same footprint and add an addition for a garage and bedrooms above. So that's what we've presented here. We like the current house. We would like it if we could use that, but obviously that just isn't an option for us at this time. The house has been there for approximately 130 years. It was originally an old boathouse for the Cottonwoods Resort. And we've done some things to the lot to shore up the property. We worked with you to replace the break wall in front of the house and expand the retaining wall behind the house to kind of create a better environment for the house. And so now we're taking this next step to do this construction and make this addition. The current septic system sits in where the addition would go. So we've also promoted to move that up onto the hill behind the house so we can get as far away from the lake as possible. And there is an application in here with the design that Bill Grove did to allow for that. Now, this site plan actually shows a couple different sites for the leach field. The one that was just highlighted by whoever was running the mouse is not really the location will be. If you can scroll up on the plan, you'll see the leach field for this house is going to be actually farther up in the northeast corner of the property there. And we did submit a plan from Bill Grove showing how that's going to be taken care of. Also, as part of this plan, there's an existing shed on the property, and that foundation is also having major problems. And so this application also looks at rebuilding that foundation and making it a little far just to give us a more continuous yard on that north side of the property. Now I've kind of thrown out a few things, just kind of talking. I don't know if anybody's tried to ask any questions or interrupt me in any way. So I'm going to take a breath and see if anybody has anything they'd like to question or add at this time, unless there's something else you'd like me to do.
No, thank you, Paul. It was all very clear. So I guess looking at some of the concerns I have and a couple of the other bodies that reviewed this, including the ECB and MRB, is stormwater runoff, because there is an increase in lot coverage as a result of the garage being added to the building. I think the lot coverage is increasing by about 1,750 square feet or something to that effect, or maybe that was the structure itself. But that was a concern, and there was no real provisions or detailed provisions as to how the stormwater would be managed from that increased impervious surface. Have you or DesignWorks thought about that, or have something to offer in terms of stormwater control?
Chairperson, we have not yet. We realize we have to do that. This is really a preliminary application to get your comments and see what our next steps are.
Okay, well, that being said, I guess we're not in a position then to act this evening. If nothing else, you're looking for comments. That's certainly one of our concerns. And the other would be the shoreline guidelines. I know there was a statement in the application package, more or less saying that you're going to go with what you have, and there wasn't a whole lot of additional landscaping that you were proposing. That seemed a little weak, and since this board is very concerned about the appearance of new structures from the lake, that's something that we'd also want to see, Chris, in any amended plans that you intend to submit.
And Mr. Chairperson, I guess I'll speak to that. We weren't trying to be light with that. I think our attitude is we own the property next door, which we've landscaped ourselves. And there are hydrangeas and boxwoods. I mean, that is what we're planning to do for this house. I mean, the addition is going up in where the existing driveway is. So the beds aren't really changing. I mean, we can come up with a landscape plan, but understand we've owned the property for 80 years. I mean, my wife's father's owned it for 80 years. She's owned it for 35 years, like the property next door. And so I guess I feel like, we've been kind of working on this property like we did next door, the property next door. And I mean, we will come up with a landscape plan. It's not that we're ignoring it. I mean, our big concern is, this house has been there a long time. We want to keep the house. We want to have the structure. We need some guidance as to what we need to do. We'll do what we need to do, but understand that our big concern is, is the concept going to work? I mean, we are looking for the okay to move forward. And we weren't minimizing that by any stretch of the measure, but look next door, look what we've done next door. I mean, that's a beautifully landscaped property, and we expect to do the same thing here.
Okay, well, application was filed. I think the board is treating this as any other application where someone was going to come in and tear down an existing building and put a supplemental additional structure on it. And I didn't realize, Paul, that you folks were looking for comments and feelers as to what we'd like to see. And usually that's done in a sketch plan that an applicant makes prior to a formal application. But again, since this was a formal application, it sort of went through the entire process in terms of application reviews.
Well, Mr. Chairperson, this is what we were told to do when we were at the town office. This is what we were said we were supposed to do. So, I mean, this sketch plan, that wasn't something that I understand or remember that was offered. So, we're looking for guidance here to move forward on a property that my wife has owned for 35 years. It's not like we've just come down and bought this property. We want to knock it down and do something. we would like to keep the house and do an addition on it. That's what we've been working to do. That's what we're working toward. The professionals we've hired has given us guidance for what they're telling us we need to do. So we're needing some guidance to move forward. We want to make sure that we understand what we can do. So yeah, we're looking for guidance, and that's why we're making this application. And if it's held up because the landscape plan isn't to your liking, I'm frustrated by that. I have to be honest.
Okay. Well, again, we're not holding it up, but we also feel there's additional information that has to be provided, which I think is what you're looking for from us. What additional information do you need? I mentioned the stormwater management component that has to be provided. I think as far as the standard zoning, meeting the zoning requirements, you've gone through that process with Chris. As far as setbacks, I know there's some nonconformities that are going to be perpetuated with this application, and that's certainly understood. And again, typically you did provide an elevation view, rendering of the structure. Normally, what we see with that is how the landscaping on the lake frontage is shown on the plan, or going to be proposed for the site. That's typical for what we see in an application of this nature. Board members, anything else you'd like to see from the applicant regarding this application?
And Mr. Chairman, this is Amanda. I agree with your comments. They are the same that I had. You know, it is a unique lot and a unique property. However, we do spend as a board a lot of time reviewing these applications and as they meet shoreline guidelines. And I would want to keep that consistent from application to application. So I agree with your comments. That's all I have.
Okay. All right, Neve, anything
Yeah.
would you like to see in this application, or felt something you feel is missing?
Well, I feel like we can still move this application forward if we were to put into, let's help the applicant out. They have a beautiful house on the lake. They're trying to make some improvements. They've worked with us on the break wall. This is a property that's, I think we're somewhat familiar with. I mean, if you're willing to entertain maybe a landscape plan that you can approve later on, I have no issues approving this going forward with
Well, Paul and Chris, given that we've said that stormwater management is a concern, and Chris has said that that's something they realize they have to address, and they do have a review letter from MRB to look over and address, and also the discussion we had tonight regarding the landscaping is, if that information can be provided to the board, I think that's all we're looking for at this point. And we would be able to move on once that information is provided.
Mr. Chairperson, one of the things that I don't understand is, okay, so we'll provide the stormwater runoff and the landscape plan. I'm happy to do that. Nobody said anything about the house and the addition. I mean, if I provide this, then do you come back and say, oh, I guess we don't like that addition? Or is the addition fine? Is what we're proposing in terms of the construction, is that fine? This whole process just kind of seems backward to me. And nobody's really said what's on the lot is fine as long as the stormwater is mitigated and your landscaping plan is accepted. And it seems backwards.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell, I think your dissatisfaction with the process is obscuring the fact that the board is telling you if you get those things, you're going to get an approval at the next meeting.
And that's what if that's what it is, that's fine. I haven't been through this process enough. I'm not a professional in this. I don't need to ruffle feathers. I just don't understand the process. And it just, to me, logically seems backwards. If that's what is being said, and that's been spelled out to me, I'm fine with that. I don't have any problem with that. I'm just frustrated with the process because I don't understand it.
Sure. Mr. Kimball, this is Lance. I'm with MRB Group, the town engineer. I just wanted to confirm, code compliant items like your building addition have to meet fire code and New York State Building Code. A lot of those items get finalized as part of your permit process with the code enforcement officer at the tail end of the process. The planning board's review is more of the site plan component, the area that your building sits on. All of that includes shoreline compliance, steep slope compliance, stormwater compliance, landscaping compliance, those elements. So if I heard the board correctly, I think, and again, Chris just alluded to that, and I know that you understood, but it sounds like there's some items that they feel in order for the site plan component to be approved to move you into the next step, which is a code review done by Chris Jensen, the code enforcement officer and building permit issuance, is that those elements need to be added to the plan so that the board can confirm you're compliant in that regards. And then the building plans and the elevation, architecturals and all that stuff would then go into the code review with the code enforcement officer outside of the purview of the planning board.
Okay.
Yeah, Paul, it sounds like we need one more month and we'll have it all wrapped up. I haven't heard any objections that are onerous here, so.
No,
Okay.
I think as far as the structure itself, looking at the elevations, it's a fine looking building. It would certainly be an asset to the community. That's not an issue. I think it's just as Lance said, it's the site components that we have to be, we're concerned about the leachate field, but that's eventually going to be decided by the DOH and with the help of Mr. Grove's submission. The only thing I can say that we do get into with the structure itself sometimes is the facade. We prefer the facade color to be a natural, neutral color, nothing bright and flashy, nothing white, nothing pink, anything like that. That again sort of blends into what we try to do with our shoreline guidelines. So that's the only suggestion we have in that regard as it affects the structure. Other than that, it's a fine looking building. Credit to the architect, and if we can get these site components resolved, I think we're good to go.
Okay. And I apologize for being so thick in terms of understanding the process. I guess I just needed to hear it in those terms. And I appreciate everybody's time and sharing that in that way. Thank you.
Well, when you do 2 or 3 more developments, Paul, you'll be an old pro.
Oh, no, this is it. This is it.
All right. Well, in that case, just seeing if there's anything else that I know you offered, and it was very kind of you to allow the town historian to either look at or consider any historical significance of this building, which was great. And shoreline guidelines to talk about. Jim Fletcher didn't have any issues. I think we're ready to get a motion to continue this application. If someone would be willing to make that motion, we can continue it. Well, Paul, Chris, it's up to you as to how soon you can get the revised plans in, as to whether we do it at the August 10th or the August 24th meeting.
I have the same name as you, Chuck, not Chris.
Oh, okay. They don't call you Charlie?
Yeah, or Charles. But Chuck, I go by Chuck. But anyway, yeah, we have no issues getting back on your agenda for next month. So.
Okay. Well, let's shoot for the 24th, because I know we've got a pretty full agenda coming up on the 13th.
No, the 24th is good for us.
Okay.
Can,
Excuse me,
can
27th. I'm sorry. I'm pushing into August. Yeah, let's shoot for the 27th of July. Does that work for Mr. Campbell, Mr. Smith?
I'm fine.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chairperson, can I just ask a question?
Sure,
With
Lisa.
regards to the landscape plan, does it need to be a stamped plan, or can I just have my landscape guy do it?
Does not have to be stamped. It just has to show us on the plan your intent as far as landscaping, so we consider in the how it looks from the lake.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, I have a motion made by me, to continue. Second, anyone?
Second, Amanda.
Okay, Amanda. So we have a motion, a second to continue the Campbell application until the 27th of July. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? None? Okay, we'll see you folks in a month.
Thank you. I appreciate your
Okay.
time.
Mr.
Chris,
Chairman,
are you ready to give us your words of wisdom back on?
I am.
Okay.
I am. Pursuant to 6 NYCRR Section 617.2, subparagraph T, an involved agency means an agency that has jurisdiction by law to fund, approve, or directly undertake an action. If an agency will ultimately make a discretionary decision to fund, approve, or undertake an action, then it is an involved agency, notwithstanding that it has not received an application at the time the seeker process is commenced. 6 NYCRR Section 617.2 subparagraph U defines an interested agency as an agency that lacks the jurisdiction to fund, approve, or directly undertake an action, but wishes to participate in the review process because of its specific expertise or concern about the proposed action. An interested agency has the same ability to participate in the review process as a member of the public. The interested and involved agencies are initially identified by the applicant, and then the board has the obligation to ensure that those are accurate, that no involved agencies are left off the list. So that's what the law says. You know, I don't know that the town board falls under an interested agency, but I guess it can't hurt to include it in the referral.
It almost sounds like the town board has to express an interest. They
Yes.
have to contact us rather than us asking them if they want to be interested.
Which, as we know, isn't how this goes. So
Yeah.
in reading the actual definition, I'm going to assume that it's implied that this board can estimate the level of interest. And if this estimates the level of interest in the town board as being interested, it can't hurt to include them in the list.
Yes,
And Lance, for our comfort, what are the involved agencies that this will be mailed out to?
I have the town highway and water superintendent, the county planning board, the New York State Department of Health, Canandaigua Lake County Sewer District, New York State DOT, Canandaigua Lake Watershed Council for a review, New York State DEC, City Fire Department, and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Those are the agencies that have some jurisdictional review over this application or issue a permit as part of this application review.
It
The
would be,
interested agencies that I've identified would be the town board, would be the State Historic Preservation Office, would be the ECB, would be the Ag Advisory Board, and Ontario County Ag Enhancement Board.
okay, very good. That sounds pretty all-inclusive. Are you feeling a little more comfortable, Ryan, as to how this thing's going?
Yeah, I am. Thank you very much for that. I really do appreciate the conversation. And I appreciate the explanation, Mr. Nather.
Now, if you would like to pen a letter to the town board regarding, and have it brought before this board as sort of giving the town board, I don't want to call it a heads up, but I mean, see
Maybe
if, make sure they have an interest in being interested.
solicit input,
Yes.
specifically solicit input.
if you want to pen that letter and bring it before the planning board, we'd certainly consider it.
I am not, I would rather not do that because it seems, I want to stay in my lane on this one, Chuck.
Okay.
I brought it to the board. We have
Okay.
discussed it. It's on the record. If you would like to bring that to the attention of the town board during the planning board update at your next meeting, that would be great. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to involve them because they've already had involvement.
Okay.
It's appropriate to do.
All right, I will call the question on the motion on the floor, having to do with the intent of the planning board to be the lead agency
Yep.
regarding this application. And I made the motion and Amanda made the second. Any further discussion and we will take a vote.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, but there has to be discussion because according to the whereas, it says that we have reviewed the full EAF Part 1 and the second whereas. Okay, so when I reviewed the EAF as one planning board member, and Mr. Brabant, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm looking at the EAF that is titled, and excuse me, I'm looking through the, I'm looking at State Route 2021-06-11, the full EAF.PDF. If that is the correct one, Mr. Brabant, that was on the website, full environmental assessment form, part 1, project and setting. Is that correct? Is that the
It's
form that-
dated the label is dated 6/11/21.
Yes.
And that's the one that I have, yes.
And that's 15 pages. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Yep.
So the second whereas is saying that we have reviewed that. Is that correct? So
Correct.
now I'm going to switch gears and put my objective hat on, as Mr. Nadler said, because we are competent. There are several sections that are not completed. So now what do we do? Because the sections are not completed. Now, where do we go now? Because this part 1 is not complete. And I can call them out, but I don't know if that's my job or if it's the applicant's job to do that.
I think it's correct that it's our job as the reviewer
Okay,
to identify areas that we feel need to be amended or updated as part of this process.
okay,
And so I agree, there are sections, specifically page 8 of 13, where Q and R do not have a notification.
yep. And so if we can, how about page 7, number K? Will the proposed action generate new or additional demand for energy? Right? And so why is that not completed? And why, so that's not complete. So that section needs to be completed, specifically page 8. Q and R are not completed. And all of the details there are not completed. Page 11, I had questions on page 11. Section H. And there was discussion about there was wetlands. I had interest. I had some conversation. I wanted to understand about the wetland conversation in there. And then page 12, paragraphs number M, identifying the predominant wildlife species that occupy or use the project site. I was wondering if Mr. Morel could please identify the qualifications of the person that completed that, because wildlife species and giving a general answer of small mammals, birds, small rodents and deer and insects is embarrassing. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know who would answer a question like that that really wanted to answer the question. And then I have to disagree with letters N. I'm sorry, no, letters O through, or N through Q. And I would like to know who were the qualifications of the people that answered those questions.
So Ryan, I can answer some of them, and not only
Okay.
from the standpoint of how this typically gets done. So it's like specifically N, when you, I believe that's one of the items that automatically gets triggered, and maybe I'm wrong. No, it isn't. So if you scroll all the way down to page 15, you're going to see the numeration E
Yep.
to N, right? See
Yep.
how it says no there? That's when they fill this out, doing it this way, which is the way that you're obligated to do it.
Yeah.
It goes onto an EAF mapper on the DEC website. The DEC website automatically inputs the information associated with those callouts on those two pages. So N is no, because that's what automatically gets triggered when you fill in this location on the EAF mapper provided on their website.
And what about M and Q?
Let's see, is it EM? Or earlier on? You're talking about earlier on in the pamphlet.
Page 12, M and Q.
M. Oh, okay. So M, I'll be honest, I've done several hundred of these as well. And that is honestly, unless you go out and you do a survey of every critical bug and insect and animal on the site, I don't know how else you can answer that. Now,
And that's
what we typically do is if there's an endangered species that specifically gets identified as part of the process, which again automatically gets filled out as part of the EAF, those species typically would be identified in this location. Otherwise, we go generic with the idea that there's a numerous amount of animals and bugs and insects that are on the sites, on every site.
Right.
And I
So,
don't know how you label them all when there's only 6 spaces.
yep, my questions were, what were the qualifications of the person that completed this? And was there general, absolute care and real detail-oriented care for this? Would you agree, Lance, that small mammals is pretty general? And really, maybe there wasn't much thought put into that? I guess I'm looking for a little bit of more attention to detail. Isn't that appropriate with this size of this project and the impacts that this is going to have? I don't think it's out of question for a project of this magnitude to go out and do a survey. I think that the DeMarco project on County Road 10 had a staff person that was a wetland ecologist, went out and did do surveys, did do due diligence, and provided a lot of information to the board for this particular. So I'm trying to keep consistent here.
I know, and I can understand that. And please know, I'm not trying to be argumentative with you. I'm just simply trying to clarify my understanding of the process. And I say wholeheartedly, if you feel there's a lack of information or additional information that you need in terms of making your review and input as part of this application, that's the whole purpose of doing a coordinated review, is
Yes.
that we're going to send this information out to those involved agencies, i.e. DEC, Army Corps. They got professionals who are going to respond back and provide some of that input back to us. And so that is what this purpose, that's what we're trying to accomplish. Now, I agree, there's areas of this form, i.e. the ones that aren't answered, that ultimately need to be answered before we can proceed in terms of providing it out to the involved and interested agencies. But I feel as if that can be done between now and the time that I send it out, with the understanding that this board will be conducting a more thorough review of the full EAF, as well as the involved agencies doing the same, as well as all your staff, and prior to any decision being rendered on the application.
Okay, so I'm just being open and doing my due diligence. Those are the items. So you're telling me that even though this resolution that says that we have reviewed it already, right? The 3 members that are here, then we're not going to miss any triggering or important information. I mean, there's significant information missing from that. Are we going to see this EAF again?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You see it before any decisions rendered, Ryan.
I understand that. I'm just trying to make it and bring it onto the record that I'm bringing the issues forward and that we're going to do our due diligence. Again, just in making sure that everything's on the record, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I agree with you.
All right, anything else, Ryan? I think let's move on with the resolution. Again, we have a motion and a second to declare the planning board as the intent to be the lead agency in this application regarding S&J Morel. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I opposed.
Amanda, you were in between both actions. Yay or nay?
Yay, I could not unmute fast enough.
Okay. Okay, well, we have, it's a 2-to-1 call and the motion carries. So we're off and running on the Sucre and what did we decide? Sometime in August, we'd be
So
back looking at
what's good?
this.
Yeah, the applicant and their engineer are going to have to fill out and amend the EAF Part 1 to answer those questions. That information will be forwarded to you guys. It will also be forwarded out as part of any coordination prior to us coordinating out. Once I get that information, I will likely begin the coordinated period of time with the understanding that the 30 days would run out prior to your August board meeting.
Okay, I hope that's clear to the applicant, to the board, and to any interested parties that are sitting in this call. Again, this is just the beginning of a process. All right, I'm going to move on to CPN 21047. Casey Coons, representing the Ontario County Agricultural Society, owner of properties at 2820 County Route 10. The society is seeking a single stage site plan approval to construct a 3,200 square foot open sided accessory structure. And Mr. Coons, I think you've been patiently waiting. And I thank you for your patience. You have the floor.
There we go. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. This is probably two parts. I did ask and submitted a waiver request from a professionally prepared plan. And what I have used is some aerial drawings as well as some AutoCAD drawings of our building. The reason why I did that is because we went through a pretty lengthy review process with a building that we built, a public assembly building that we built starting back in 2017. So I included the site plan that shows our neighbors, the adjacent parcels, provided all that type of information. This new application then shows on our map where the proposed structure will be, where that is located in reference on our site. The first building was a public assembly, many requirements. This is for a poultry building to be used 1 week out of the year during fair for our 4-H youth to utilize. It is mostly open-sided, no water, no electric, takes the place of a tent that our youth has been using. It is being built by a professional contractor using accepted practices, engineered trusses. All of that information was provided that I think is typically asked for in a site plan. I believe we have provided. If there's, I know MRB Group had some questions. Those were answered and sent back. And at this time, I would take any other questions that anyone would have.
Okay, thank you, Casey. Yeah, I guess the only thing I had a question on procedure. This is a revision expansion of a special use permit. Chris, either one. Is there any action required regarding the amending of the special use permit, or is that something that's mute in this situation?
I don't know what exactly the special use permit was granted for.
No. Good question.
We didn't include it on the zoning law determination. We assumed this is pretty much in line with the original approvals.
Okay, and yeah, it's not a major structure. I could see if they were building redoing the track or putting the grandstand up or something like that, it would be maybe something different that would affect the operations of the fairgrounds. And seeing, I guess it's essentially replacing a tent that was there before. I guess we can forego any consideration of the special use permit.
Maybe a finding could be added, Lance, that says the planning board is aware that applicant has been granted a special use permit for the premises and finds that this, the proposed structure is in compliance therewith.
Got it.
I'm okay with that. Hopefully the rest of the board would be. The MRB review was mostly construction related, and you did respond to those, Casey, and that was appreciated. And the county planning board also was had an issue, not an issue, but a concern about the stockpile location, which I think is also being addressed. You did request a waiver from a professional plan, which I think the board is willing to accept. Board members, any questions, concerns? Ready to go to the fair?
We are running this year.
Good.
I heard the full time, right? The whole time?
Yes, we are July 27th to the 31st for 5 days.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Luckily and thankfully, the governor has watched the numbers and here locally as well. And it looks like, we'll be able to run a safe fair.
Mr. Chairperson, I'd like to make a motion to approve seeker resolution as a type 2 action bundled with the single site plan approval resolution for 2820 County Road 10 for the Ontario County Agricultural Society with the site plan approval having the following 5 conditions.
Mr. Stachek?
Yes.
This is Chris Jensen. For a site this size, they show silt fence around the whole building. There's really no worry about runoff, any adjacent streams or anything like that. I don't know if you want to forego the surety and all that stuff again with this one, because there really isn't any danger of impact.
Thank you very much. 100% agree with that. If we could write that in as an additional.
Take it out. Yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be removal of condition 3 as written, and then I can most certainly add some language to the findings if you guys would like.
Yeah, sure. So that makes it, I change my motion to only 4 conditions.
I think Casey can find some hay bales to put around there, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And thank you,
All
Chris,
right.
for bringing that.
So I have a motion. I'm willing to second that motion. And it's a bundled motion for both the seeker type 2 and the site plan approval for the Ontario County Agricultural Society to put up a poultry barn on the fairground site. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Good luck.
If I
this year.
could, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
that if I could ask, since we did talk about the fair is coming next month. What is the time frame now, if we're able to get moving on this for your signature and for a permit to be awarded?
Okay, if you get the plans in, I will get them signed and I'll do haste.
Okay, I think the plans are there, I believe.
Really, there's the plans are not professionally prepared. If we could just add I'll stamp something that says planning board chairperson on the plans we have, if you want to just go that route.
Chris, if you can have that tomorrow afternoon, I'll be over to sign the decision.
Will do.
Mhm. Okay,
Thank you very much. Thank you, folks.
good evening. All right.
back to the Morels, and this is CPN 21051. Morel, our Marathon Engineering Representative S&J Morel, requesting amended single-stage site plan approval to correct house pad elevations that deviated by more than 12 inches from those specified on the approved plans for 20 townhome units of the Woodvine Rise in section 5B and 8 townhouse units on Harvest View Drive in section 9C. And this is a problem that hopefully is not getting to be chronic throughout our town. But I guess my only question is what are the variations? How much did they variate more than the 12 inches in general and on the average? You don't have to go through lot by lot.
Sure.
I would have to say about 2 feet.
2 feet? Okay, so it's about a foot on the average higher than the allowable. Okay. And Jeff, if you just want to tell us what happened out there and how do we prevent it from happening again?
Sure. And this is a good housekeeping. So I think that's why we're before the board, just to make sure that we complete all of our record maps. But in essence, you'll notice that this is not deviating one house to the next. It's deviating almost on a consistent basis throughout the project. And the real main purpose of that is we took the position of having all the homes ADA compliant with no step entries, which creates an 8-inch differential as we do our grading, so that we create that no step entry for the empty nester community so they can age in place. This is not a case that you've seen obviously elsewhere in the town where somebody's trying to one-off elevate their homes to create a view shed to the lake. All of our drainage works perfectly. And what we're now doing is we're just modifying our setting points when we go to construct to remove that 8-inch differential when we set the grade as a result of that ADA. But by ADA, what we've been doing is basically you eliminate the step going into the home by pouring your sidewalk and your garage floor in a sloped format so that there's no differential at the entry point. And so that's what created the consistency. But I guess there were issues elsewhere in the town and with regards to looking at the lake. And when we all went back to our site and did shots, we wanted to make sure that all of our records were brought into conformance. So we reshot every one of the buildings and are submitting that to the town just to make sure that our site plans are conforming.
Okay, as staff, usually in situations such as this, we want to make sure that there's been no negative effect to the surrounding grades, affecting neighbors, causing any issues in terms of steep slopes or causing something that's not manageable to be traversed. Chris, Lance, are we okay with the grading that has resulted?
Yeah, I believe Lance can speak on it, but they did a thorough review of the new grading plan.
Yes, we did have some suggestions in terms of just making sure the areas between the building lots do in fact convey runoff away from it. So we had a couple of suggestions that just suggested altering the grading between the lots, but all in all, we didn't have a major concern with the buildings as proposed.
And that's reflected in your review, and it's also a condition of your resolution, right?
Correct. It's our letter dated June 18th, I believe, on section 9B, just for the record, 9B. We suggested grading between the units 935 and 936. There was some concern that it's possible that some of the runoff may in fact be runoff conveyed to unit 935. So we just suggested that that drainage way between the two be altered in a manner that would provide positive flow away between the two buildings. And then we gave some other suggestions between other units, 932 and 931, and then 928, 927. Again, it's just a matter of adding a contour or pulling the grade in a manner just to make sure that there's not an overflow of drainage from one site to the other, providing more of a middle, between yard swale, for lack of a better term, to convey it away from those foundations. A very similar concept was identified for 9C as well. Again, I want to make it clear that overall, the project itself as proposed, we don't have any really objection to, but we did want to consider providing a little bit more positive flow away from those units where we could.
Okay. Okay.
I guess from a procedural standpoint, Chuck, I don't want to belabor the point, and Jeff, you work with the town very well, obviously, but at some point, Jeff and Scott said, hey, let's make these ADA compliant, and then didn't come back to the planning board at that point and built them at the wrong elevation. Going forward, I think the board would prefer that you come back before you make that determination. There's always the chance that they don't grant this amended approval, and then you're stuck with not having approved buildings.
Yeah, Chris, that's a great point. I just want to emphasize that from a grading perspective and from where that finished grade atop a block was, that is what did not deviate. It was now where the measurement is being taken place inside where that finished floor is. So top of block wasn't really altered. It was that internal foundation was then elevated up to basically top of block, and that creates our new finished floor. If that visual makes sense in everyone's mind, imagine, your top of block foundation, and then you're normally 8 inches below that in the garage. So there was no deviation at that top of block position, which is why all of our grading works quite well on the site. And now what we're going to do is just do a different procedure, all told, with regards to setting in the house pads.
I withdraw my complaint.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense, and I don't think there was any problem there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Board members, you have any issues we ought to discuss, or can we move to making this thing whole?
Just a couple questions for the record, Chuck.
Sure.
Did the deviation impact the roof line?
Mr. Morel?
Yeah, I mean, again, the top of block is the exact same position. So anytime we are above basically 18 inches, but you're measuring roof line from top of foundation. So you're within a 3-4 inch tolerance at that point, roof line wise. But it's a good question, Ryan.
Well, I'm just trying to get, so during this conversation, when we approved this, we spoke about the ridge line guidelines extensively, especially in the view shed from Middle Cheshire Road to the back side of these, if I'm correct. Chuck, do you remember that?
Yeah, I know it was between the lake view shed and well, we were more concerned about the lakeside view shed. We wanted to make sure it was over the ridge line on the Middle Cheshire Road side, that so that the lake view shed would not be affected. So I think that's primarily what we were shooting for.
So specifically in layman's terms, Mr. Morel, is the roof line also deviating up to 2 feet on some of these parcels, up or down in elevation?
No, it's not. Again, the top of block position continues to be the same. So you're constructing from top of block up as far as the overall structure of the house. It's the measurement position shifted 8 inches because our floor now is at the top of block instead of 8 inches below that. So
Okay, I understand.
in order for your quote unquote height of roof to be altered, again, they're all single stories. You'd be above 18 inches, 20 inches.
Okay, so I guess,
So if you look at the list, anything that is above 20 inches would have deviated by that. So the highest delta would be about an 8-inch differential. If you look at, say, lot 941, as far as your ridge roof line, it'd be about an 8-inch differential.
so I'll try to ask my question a different way. The original approval, if the projects were built to the original approval, in the original approval, the exact elevation of the ridge lines of the roofs, are they different than now is being built? Are those ridge lines different?
There's no difference, no. The original approval does not have a specification of a max elevation ridge line element. The ridge lines all change on every one of the roof structures based on what is being constructed. So one ridge line of a roof could vary 2 feet if somebody has a gable in a particular position front to back. So the answer is no. There's no set elevation above the ground level beyond your normal measurements of building height, as far as a max building height of 35 feet. So
I think what Ryan's asking, if you have a design first floor elevation 100, and now that and you have a height of the building of being, say, called 20 feet, so the height of the building would be 120 feet. If you increase the first floor elevation by 2 feet, does it now become 122 feet in elevation at the top? I think that's what he's at. Is it 2 foot higher in terms of elevation than what it would have been if it would have been built at the design elevation?
Right, I'm trying to understand that.
Impossible for me to tell because all the homes have different varying roof lines throughout the project.
Do you lose the 2 feet somehow internally so that the height, the peak is the same as what it was originally? Or, I mean, you're not making the ceilings any shorter or any shallower, right, Jeff?
Yes, because no two ridge lines on a building are the same. So you could have a building that is 100 feet with a gabled roof that goes up 30 feet. Then you could have another building at 100 feet with a gabled roof that goes up 34 feet. That's indiscriminate based on the construction of the overall home. So those vary according to the overall structure of the house as to where the gable positions are.
But they would vary as designed, but with the variation of moving it up to 2 feet, does everything move up 2 feet, including the roof? I think that's what Ryan's getting at. Is that what you're looking for, Ryan?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's true. I'm trying to understand that.
I mean,
I don't.
Yeah, Jeff, you're saying that
Why
the gables change with each design, but I think we're just saying, given the same design as what you had initially with the elevation 100, would the whole building go up the 2 feet, including the first floor?
So the best way I could describe that is if you're looking at it as a 0 point as I said, it's 20 inches, anything above quote unquote 20 inches on this table, you would then need to calculate if that roof section was then at its maximum roof height from that point above that. And then if it was also a building constructed at its maximum height allowed per town code, on top of the 18 inches, if we were on that particular building, you would have a variance of say 4 inches. The largest quote unquote variance here is about 24 inches, et cetera. So does that make sense? Like, so you'd need.
Yeah, I don't think we were concerned about the building height exceeding the max. I think it was just from a ridgeline view shed standpoint, is the house or the structures out of the ground that much higher? And that's sort of the question. I think that's what Ryan's getting at. And I don't know if it's something we want to spend much more time on, but
the reason I ask is before I was on the planning board required an applicant to tear down a brand new garage or addition because it was built 12 inches, more than 12 inches compared to the plan.
that was, yeah, and the building height wound up being 12 inches more. The actual building height,
Didn't require it.
if the maximum height
They
was.
wound up doing that.
If the maximum height was 35 feet, building height, it was built at 36 feet, so therefore it had to be torn down. That was the occurrence. Here we're talking about it still being 35 feet, but the elevation in terms of datum is another foot or two out of the ground.
May I add, this is Chris Jensen. Most of the houses are at about 24, 25 feet, so they're still about 10 foot below what's approved kind of thing in that zoning district.
As far as maximum building height. Yeah.
I guess, so the roof, if the roof line didn't change, if this is what we approved, I guess I'm just asking, did the roof line go up or did it go down? For ridgeline guidelines, is the deviation higher or is the deviation lower?
Again, let's not confuse building height standards or requirements versus view shed and ridgeline. And ridgeline view shed is more, more subjective, and where the building height maximum is objective. It can only be a certain height and no higher. Again, we wrestled with ridge lines, Ryan, you're correct, with this section 9 for Lakewood Meadows, and we were trying to get it over the ridge line on the west side of the ridge line so that none of the structures could be seen from the lake. What's out there with Middle Cheshire, I know some people are concerned about it's in the view shed or it's in the ridge line of Middle Cheshire, but that was never really a factor that was considered in terms of the view from Middle Cheshire up the hill.
Oh, so I think Ryan's concern though, I think Chuck, you summarized the history of it, but Ryan's concern is the roof higher? Jeff can't say no to that because some might be a little bit higher. And I think Jeff gave a good explanation of how that's possible, but the question is, did the roofs go up because of the finished floor elevations going up? Are you measuring your floors from the finished floor elevation or from the top of the block? Can Lance or Chris Jensen give Ryan the answer he needs here?
The elevations are based on the average finished grade, the soil, and not the finished floor. The plans are based on the finished floor.
Ryan, does that answer your question?
Thank you, Mr. Jensen, very much. Yes, I don't know why. Otherwise, I don't know why we're even looking at this. Why do we need? Does the planning board have to change the site, the overall plan? You know what I mean? I'm just trying to understand why.
So a condition of the approval and on the original site plans there is a statement that says it has to go back to planning board if the finished floor elevation deviates 1 foot or more from the original plan. We had that happen to a couple Gerber homes, so it had to be equal across the board. So this is why Mr. Morel is here with us.
Okay, so no big issues with the ridge lines. Let's move forward.
So Ryan makes a motion to approve whatever it is here.
No. Almost, Chris, but no.
Just trying to move you
All
along.
right, let me tell you what we're looking at, folks. We're looking at there's no seeker involved, so it's strictly an amendment of the site plan for those 2 sections related to those 28 units. And in conformance with the submitted plans. And I don't, Chris, you still have the other resolution up for the, oh, I'm sorry. Is this a new one? Okay. Is it 1 motion or 2? I think it's two sections, 2 motions, right?
Correct. Well, I have 2 separate approval resolutions for your consideration.
And
One
they-
for 9B, one for 9C.
And they essentially say the same thing except different
Same
building
thing.
units. Okay.
Correct.
I will make a motion that and bundle the 2 amended single stage site plan approvals for Lakewood Meadows, the 2 sections quoted, and subject to the 3 conditions that are listed. Have a second?
Second.
Need a motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, Jeff, we don't want to see you back on any of these type of motions.
I'll see you. I won't. I'll see you back on the 10th of August.
Okay.
Thanks for your time this evening.
Thanks for your patience.
Sure.
All righty.
Mr. Chairman and board, and Jeff, while you're on here, I know that the board already continued it, but because I think we should probably do a continuation resolution for the Pierce Brook subdivision, I'm suggesting that because the board continued it to the August 10th board meeting, if we could have a first and second on that, I think that would be appropriate. I don't know, Chris, if anybody has any objection, or Shauna has any objection to that.
Why? Why, Lance? What do you mean?
Because there's been some times when we do these seeker projects that I make a recommendation that the applicant come in prior to the 30 days runs out just to provide feedback and comments. But this board specifically suggested being continued to the August 10th board meeting. And so to prevent your agenda from having that possibility of somebody putting it on inadvertently prior to the date that we continued it and continued the public hearing to, I think it would be good for our records to show that this board continued the public hearing and the application to their August 10th board meeting.
So moved.
I will second it. Have a motion second to continue the public hearing for Marathon Engineering representing S&J for the Pierce Brook subdivision to August the 10th.
Correct.
Okay. All in
I
favor?
apologize for not bringing it to your attention sooner.
No, and after I went by it, I said, I guess I should have continued that public hearing, but my bad too. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, can I get an approval on the minutes for June 8th meeting?
So moved.
Thank you. Second from Amanda. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Nice job as usual, John. Okay, no referrals from town board yet, although last night there was a referral of the comp plan and the form-based code to us. So we'll be discussing those at our July 13th meeting. In the pipeline are Ridgeline regulations, which are being developed by the ordinance committee. There's also a billboard resolution coming forth, and the conservation subdivision is getting close to being run up the flagpole for everybody's review. So those are to come, but we definitely have the comp plan and the form-based code coming out of this next meeting. We have no recommendations in the ZBA. No recommendations to the code enforcement officer. We have one letter of credit, and that's for Alan and Elizabeth Lupton, owners of property at 3459 Lakeview Lane. And it's not a letter of credit, it's just a release of their surety. Kind of a motion to give them their money back.
Chuck, can I just reach out to Shauna Bonshak? And just Shauna, just as a point of process, sometimes we'll just reach out to you to just give us the thumbs up that these letters of credit have all been okie dokie through your office. And something that we always did with like Eric and everybody else. So like, so it will be common if I just say, Shauna, do we got the thumbs up on this? And then give us a yay or nay so that we can.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I do know that this one does have the thumbs up, but that's good to know. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, so moved, Chuck.
Okay, second. Yeah, usually we're the last to see it. It's been reviewed by Chris and by Lance, and if they all sign off, and then we're the last ones to look at it. So don't bring it to us until everybody else is okay with it. All righty, I have a motion, a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, anybody have any other business to bring to the discussion tonight?
Question on the comp plan.
Sure.
What I see on the shared site is the latest dated April 15th. Is that still accurate?
No, I know.
That is not, Amanda. The latest version, I believe, is June 16th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please get that posted.
Yep. I'll make sure that that's updated.
Thank you.
It's on the website. It's on the town website.
Oh, okay.
Right. But it's also on the other, we just have to make sure that it's
consistent,
the right copy everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, just for everybody's update on that, there was a meeting I attended with Doug, and I believe, Shauna, if you could please maybe send me a link to that recording.
Oh, sure. The Thursday meeting that we were, okay. Yep.
Or just direct me on where I could find it. I looked for that online. And I brought to the attention of Doug, and Shauna was there, and Terry Finelli, and Karen Parkhurst, and Sarah Reynolds, a couple others, on my concerns about the process. And it was so I gave my pitch to follow the original process like we discussed at the last meeting. And it went to town board last night, and the town board did move to set a public hearing. So basically, they're moving forward to my dissatisfaction, but it's in their hands now. Is that accurate, Shauna? Is that fair?
That's accurate. And there was, just as to add on to that, it went right through. There was no discussion last night. I was at the meeting.
That's correct. There was no discussion, and it was a 56-minute town board meeting with no discussion. For the record, John, thank you.
Okay. And one other thing related to that, I did express to Doug and to the CIC that I thought it's kind of a short fuse to have a hearing on the 13th and possibly take action the same night. I said with an issue such as the comprehensive plan, it's probably something that the hearing should be held and any action deferred until a subsequent meeting so that any input from, it allows the planning board and other review agencies to have time to digest the draft and make any comments, because I think something as important as a comp plan shouldn't be rushed through. And Doug did say today at a meeting we held that they would consider not taking action on the 13th, that they would possibly, depending on what comes out of the hearing, defer action until a subsequent date. All right. real quick, just don't forget to get your training. I had asked, by the way, Michelle to give us a roll-up of where we stand as far as training. We're sort of 6 months in, so we just want to make sure you people are aware of what your obligations are, and there are plenty of opportunities out there. So if you need the hours, go get them and get them over with, so we don't have a crunch at the end of the year. Upcoming for the July 13th, another busy night. Hopefully we'll be back to full strength. We'll have Aurora Solar in terms of the solar farm over on County Route 10. We have Marks Engineering with the Carol Eifert property over on State Route 364. And we have David Gill. He got approval from the ZBA, and I think we, at our last meeting, deferred his action on his application until the 13th, so we've got to take that. So that's what we got coming up on the 13th. It's going to be a busy night, and I appreciate Amanda and Brian's patience and cooperation and input tonight. It's tough working with three. I guess it's time to start looking for an alternate again. But this, I think, was just a perfect storm where both Gary and Bob were out the same night. Bob was going to try to make it, but he was traveling. He was on the road, so he said he couldn't tune in. So we carried the ball. Nice job. Anything else?
Chuck, if I may, we were part of this meeting. We talked about next month doing a hybrid version. So we can get people into town hall again. So we would still have and continue to have the Zoom option, but we'll be in the chambers and we will conduct the meeting in person as well.
Yep. I think there's going to be a lot of interest with the State Route 364 application. So to give the public the best opportunity they can to provide input both in person and virtually, we are going back to meeting in person. So Ryan, how about a thumbs up?
Well,
Ryan, yay.
I'm very, very excited.
We heard you and we listened and we.
Can I attend July 13th hybrid still as a member? Seriously? Remotely?
Yes, I mean, you still have the option of attending remotely as a board member.
I would like to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
But hopefully the rest of us will be there if possible.
If it's allowed, I'd like to, because I'm going to be in Colorado.
Oh,
Good for you, man.
Yeah, I think it goes back to our old remote attendance policy.
Does it? If it does, then we have to do, I don't know.
I mean, that would certainly, hybrid would be more forgiving and allow more participation than just our remote attendance policy. So even if we didn't have the hybrid possibility, you could attend as a board member remotely.
As a citizen.
Well, how about this? If it's allowed, Mr. Nadler, maybe you can look on to this and legally, if it's allowed, I will still attend. I think it's a fantastic option. If it is not allowed, I will not be at the next meeting. I will be in Colorado.
It's allowed.
It's allowed.
Okay.
I'm certain of it.
We'll let you in.
Sure, Mr. Nadler, do you want me here?
Oh, I mean, it's definitely not allowed. Colorado is out of range.
I'll let you in, Ryan. I'll let you in.
Thank you,
So it's
Mr.
definitely allowed
Alrighty.
and encouraged.
Only if you make a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn it.
Wait, I'm sorry, board. I do have one thing to comment on. I just want to make sure you guys are all aware. The Canandaigua Shores project in Canandaigua, that's before you, which we started a coordinated review on. The other segment of that, the part that's in Hopewell, has also, as of later this month, will begin their review of their component of the project. So you, the board, will likely be identified as an involved agency because you guys will have an approval as part of their project because some of the stormwater from their project goes into the town of Canandaigua. So you will be identified as an involved agency just as much as they were identified as an involved agency for you due to the road connection. So I'm hoping to have comments from their board back to you guys prior to your next board meeting. I'm sure formally they should be submitting something that the town has, but I'm also trying to get some of that input when I attend their meeting, and vice versa. I would hope that we can provide some comments and feedback back to them. This project, and not to keep this meeting going any longer than it has to, is going to be very integral about how the approvals work, who approves what first, what can be done first, and so on. So I'll keep you guys as informed as I can as it relates to the Hopewell project, and let you know what's going on that front. But I just wanted to let you guys know tonight.
Okay. That project will be a very interesting project, and Ryan, we certainly hope your input's available for the 13th. I think it'll be more than just one meeting as far as our deliberations on that, so
That's a big,
be prepared.
yeah, I don't want to miss that, because I've been doing a little bit of research on that, and just for Shauna and Chris Jensen, the mixed use overlay MUO3, there's a map that I found online that's dated 2017 where the MUO3 doesn't go down all the way to the border of Gorham. So so I just want to make sure that the mixed use overlay, I believe, was approved by town board we further extended it down Route 364 all the way to the town border.
Town line, yeah.
I don't know if they're using that process, the MUO process, during the approvals. Lance?
But if they're using MUO approvals for the town of Canandaigua, no, I don't believe so.
This board made a recommendation.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
They are. So Canandaigua review. Yes, the Canandaigua review, I apologize. I got too many.
It's
things.
the other, yeah.
Yeah, so the Canandaigua portion, yes, it goes through, and the town board on this action was an involved agency because of the MUO. They are going through a review with you guys for seeker, then a preliminary approval, assuming that we get to that part. Then it goes back to the town board for the MUO approval, then back to you guys for final approval. Along the way, we need some approvals from Hopewell for the secondary access road. Otherwise, they got to alter the plan to provide that, or sprinkler all their buildings. So that's a thing that they have to deal with. On the Hopewell side, they need some level of approval from you guys to occur because of the stormwater component that they're facing. Otherwise, they have to revise their plans to comply fully and wholeheartedly on their site, which they currently are not able to do. So there's a back and forth approval, who does what first, that we have to work through.
Chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
But to be clear, it is mixed use overlay 3. It is in there.
Yes.
I knew it was. I just couldn't find that map. Thank you.
Okay.
No, that was my fault. I was thinking of something different, and I apologize for that.
Okay. Cue Ryan.
Motion to adjourn this awesome meeting at 9:07 p.m.
Thank you, one and all. Thanks, John. Thanks, Shauna. Thanks, Lance.
Thank you. Have
Thanks.
a good night.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Chris.
Bye.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Good night.